Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to all the long awaited webinar Times Tech Cybersecurity Virtual Conclave. This is Payal from Times Tech Print Media, and I will take a moment to give you a brief about the organization. Times Tech Print Media is the leading electronics technology publication in India. Times Tech Buzz covers a wide range of spectrum of electronics and allied industries. Times Tech has extended the reach to a wide audience of professionals and purchase heads. You get this immense reach through our timestech.in. We also conduct meaningful events and conferences. Times Tech is into white papers, case studies, etc. Today, we are going to conduct a very knowledgeable and insightful webinar to showcase how cybersecurity is highly important for the BFSI sector in taking preventive security measures to prevent the data against cyber attacks. The conclave will act as a knowledge sharing platform to discuss the various aspects of security challenges, troubleshoots, and solutions in banks and NBFCs with a special focus on cybersecurity and BFSI virtual conclave. So let's start this very meaningful conference with a very insightful keynote presentation by Mr. Sanjay Kumar Das, WCS Joint Secretary, Department of IT&E, State of Information Security Officer, West Bengal.
Good morning to everybody. Am I audible, Ms. Pan? Hello, Ms. Payal, am I audible?
Yes, Mr. Sanjay, you are audible.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I was just wanting that confirmation. So once again, good morning to everybody. I would like to actually extend my gratitude and heartfelt thanks to Times Tech as well as the organizers to give me this opportunity of presenting the keynote address at this very, important seminar and conference rather. I would like to just start by, taking a brief moment of you to let us retrospect how, data in the ancient time, as far as monetary data is concerned, used to, transact. When there was no written document kept, actually it was the barter system. Rather, when later when written documents were started to be kept, then it was written whatever transactions were there. Later, these transactions were actually converted into digital form, that means in binary numbers of 0 and 1, and digitized in a mode. Later, the digitization took over, and we started not keeping any data whatsoever in physical form. And right now, we are really, worried whether that digital data is safely kept by the organizations who are responsible to transact that. So under the given circumstances, we have seen a paradigm shift from, keeping it in our head when there was no written document. Right now, keeping it in the cloud. That is also when there is no documentary evidence. So we are actually coming back to the square one in a different notion. So in that different notion, different aspect, the whole responsibility has come down to the public authorities like government and the organizations who are being paid by citizens to safekeep their data. Now the issue is how to ensure that the data with whom we are sharing, they would take care of that data. Number one. Number two, in the digital economy, are we ready? That means before we actually embark upon this digitization process, did we really have a fact check up to what extent that digital economy exists on the ground and whether the last mile has been covered? So the question will be there. If we do not start now, then we will not be start anytime soon. Absolutely. We will not start anytime soon if we want to cover the 130th, 30 crore population at one go and then start digitalization. No, definitely not. With that notion and with that nuances, with those nuances in mind, I would like to share my screen and present. Actually, I have been disabled. Ms. Payal or somebody, would you please enable sharing my screen? I have a small presentation. Is it possible to, allow me to share my screen, sir?
Mr. Sanjay, there is a share screen tab. You can
Yes,
press that.
I'm clicking that, and it is written that host has disabled participants training sharing.
Oh,
So I have to be just allowed to share my screen, sir. Yes, I have been allowed. Thank you so much. Mr. Sharma, is it visible? Uh, are you able to?
yes, Mr. Sanjay.
Thank you so much, sir.
Clear. Yeah.
So where I have just left myself, the moot question is whether we have digital wisdom to start, our entire activities as far as digital inclusive economy is concerned. When we talk about inclusive economy in the digital, domain, whether we have created the digital wisdom for the entire nation. So what is actually, digital economy? In 1995, Don Tapscott, in his famous book, The Digital Economy, defines how internet would soon change the way the business used to operate at that point of time. Broad ranges of activities that were at that point of time, going on, they were firstly digitized using information communication technology, and they became new factors of new age economy. And from the brick and mortar, structure to click and mortar model, we have grown. And that's why we could actually deal with the pandemic. Had we not started our transition to digital economy in the right manner, we would not have faced pandemic as we had faced in the last 1.5 years. Definitely, that is a boon. But on the other side, the emerging technology driven innovation, job opportunities, economic growth, they are really getting synced with the knowledge, with the awareness, and with the wisdom of the common people. So how these technologies, emerging technologies are actually doing this thing? They are doing by simply collecting, analyzing, storing, and sharing data. Now, data is the new oil, and that's why sharing data is the most vital thing. So, coming down to the implications, if we really see that the government and industry vis-a-vis the individual implications that this data actually part into, we are always faced with this challenge and questions. Are we collecting appropriate data? Are we unbiased in analyzing data? Are we the right entity or authority to store various forms of data like personally identifiable information? And are we competent authority to share and circulate that in any form of data or for different data in different forms? So from the individual point of view, answer or the similar questions to these very queries on the government or the industry side are, are the individuals, are we really competent being individuals to use technology in the rural and urban region at the same go? Are we really aware of the industry best practices? When industry says that we have informed you, are we ready to accept and ingrain that? Are we really cyber aware as far as cyber hygiene is concerned? Are we aware about the privacy changes it is happening? Even yesterday night, I understood that the present IT form has undergone a sea change, and what minute details I really have to, include. So these are all important things that is coming up. And without being aware and without being properly made aware by everybody around me, I might be, penalized for not complying. So being individuals, are we aware of the changing technology? The change from the way the original website used to look, and how that was only a push application of me putting data into the information, the income tax website, and right now it is a transactional portal. So these are the changes happening everywhere. So why are we here? If you ask me really that why are we here, I would rather say that we are here in order to see an effect, a real change of awareness, from awareness to broad-based knowledge, and from broad-based knowledge, inclusive of everybody around us, to a common and general wisdom, so that our next generation can tackle the problems. What are the problems, more or less? What are the potential impacts? If our generation, as well as the generations to come, would see with regards to core digital sector, the individuals would be, there will be new jobs. Multinational enterprises will be actually using that opportunity of, investing into data analytical models, and those data getting created through transactions, and huge transactions, and most transactions are happening in the financial sector. Governments are also attracting investment using that data, and economy is booming. Similarly, in digital economy, new jobs are coming. The day before yesterday, there was an Intel, seminar which I attended. And there, somebody from Intel at Singapore, he told us a beautiful thing. We were talking about, actually, we participated in a seminar on Intel in education. So he told that with the existing, software and the hardware, whatever technology we have, with the existing technology, we can automate 50% of our day-to-day activities. Leave aside the technology that is going to come. The existing technology will take care of automation of 50%. So what will happen? New jobs are getting, created, but the old jobs have to, transform from their knowledge, lack of knowledge in the specific sector, to the knowledge. And that transition I'm referring to here is the change from awareness to knowledge to wisdom. And digitized economy is an inclusive economy. If we cannot ensure creation of wisdom in the common mass, digital economy cannot be an inclusive economy. It will only be run by a select few. What is happening all around us? Yesterday, I got an email stating that, I had an account in some, Sheen, web portal, buying materials I never had. And then they threatened me to pay money. And if I did not, then they would be actually exposing all my things, kept in my laptop and other things. So what is happening? These are a fraud. These are instances of fraud. Every day frauds are happening. And not only that, the public sector banks, the private banks, they are the most important targets. And my dear friends, not only that, the thousands and thousands of cooperative banks across the length and breadth of this country are also, soft targets. And who are the main, stay of those banks? The mainstay of those banks are none other than the common people, the agriculturists, very, very marginalized poor people. So they are now becoming soft targets. On 5th of May, I received a call at around 7 a.m. in the morning. I was asked to actually, correct the data that is having that where the caller had, because in that manner, they would actually send me 18,000 rupees in my PM Jandhan or Jojana or something like that, So just Kishan Credit Jojana or something like that. I immediately understood that that was a hoax call. And when I told that person very politely, sir, I understand that you are trying to lure me, And what will happen if I take a note of your phone number, or if I, just recorded this thing? Then he was also very polite, much more polite than me. See, he replied, you use whatever technology you have, sir. You use whatever technology you have, you will never get. The issue is those who are coming down to us and trying to lure us, they are so powerful. So we know how the fraud works, but does the common people know? Does the common man know? Does the simple man who does not have any knowledge on this digital economy know? And if it is not so, how am I, really ensuring that the digitized economy will include him or her? You might say, why not? Banking correspondents are there. Yeah, definitely. I will come down to the banking correspondence. You must understand, sir and madam, whosoever here, that I had, I had this vast experience of being a civil servant and working in the grassroots level and understanding how the banking correspondence and all these things work. The whole aspect actually is dependent upon very not banking idea of ours who consider themselves to be the policy framers. We think that whatever we have understood from the ground level, we should utilize that and take a solution to that. No, my dear friends, that does not happen, and that's why most of our efforts do fail, because all these plans must be allowed to be created by them who are the recipients of the benefits. And that's why the threat actors are moving with us. In this case, at this point, I would like to give you a beautiful example. Before this job of civil service, I had been with Intelligence Bureau as an intelligence officer for the government of India. I was posted in the Northeast at a very far-flung area, and I was tasked to talk to some people who were not very inclined to support the government and government activities. So they were actually identified to be against the government or against people. So when I was talking to them, and I asked them, why are you so committed? How could what made you so committed to pursue when you know that your life is at stake and any day you can die? And the answer that I received is the answer here on the present slide that we are here. The answer he gave me is that you are working for your stomach and we are working for our belief. The issue is all of us here, we are doing a job, and the threat actors are trying to fool us, trying to find the faults in us and prove us that they are far superior with an ulterior motive. I'm not justifying them. I'm just making everybody understand that we must move with the threat actors as they are moving with us. And they are changing their soft targets, they are changing their trends, they are changing their patterns. And all these frauds are with the evolving modus operandi is changing every day. The most recent frauds in West Bengal and specifically in Kolkata happened, with regards to the ATM, and that was man in the middle attack. And on the other hand, the other things that mostly are occurring here are, putting this that remote control software into your application, luring you to download that yourself and taking over the control of your device and ensuring that the fraud is committed and money is lost. So all these frauds, different frauds, because there is no validation, no basic principle, there is a very important bank who does not believe in giving OTP to all and sundry. They have ensured and they are fighting it hard with even, when we do adjudication in case of cyber frauds, they are fighting with us. No, it is not important to send OTP for every transaction. Even when the person knows the PIN, that person can utilize that pin on the on the browser, on the application. When we were asking them that why are you not considering the fact that my device has been taken over remotely and it is being controlled by a third party. So if my PIN is known to them, and all the details that are already available with them, they can immediately actually do the transaction. No, that is not my or our responsibility. So coming down to the fact is that there is no benchmarking. The best practices are there, but there is no perfect, this thing mandate that this has to be maintained. And all these frauds are actually generating out of these gray areas. So we need to understand that solutions are available before us. The digital penetration requires equal focus on cyber awareness, upskilling, and toll gate review. That means not only a person going from, coming from outside to inside, but the person going from inside to outside. So it is not a case of Darwan. It is a case of a both side review. That means piggybacking is one of the most important things. That's why we need to have that toll gate review. We should have zero tolerance to PII exposure. That day, in our own case, in one of the government portals, I found that there was an PDF, and in that PDF, entire details of some officers, government officers, are written with their date of birth and with their mobile number, with their email. And he immediately called up the person responsible for that. And I said, sir, just imagine what will happen. The person's name is known, the father's name is known, email ID is known, mobile number is known, and date of birth known. Immediately with these things, one can very well give a call in the call center. And right now the call centers are not mostly managed by people, they are managed by bots. And immediately those bots will give me a temporary password to go into and change and create passwords. Just imagine, even if you have all those details and you are very sincere not to share on any cyberspace, somebody has already done that. Zero exposure of bank registered numbers. There are so many places where we actually put up the numbers that we use for bank transactions. So they, on marketing platforms, social media, very well about multi-factor authentication. And even when we talk so much about that, we do not, most of us and everybody around do not use multi-factor authentication. Why? Because this is a deterrent and it is really a cumbersome process. Whenever I go into the thing, it will send me a link or a this thing number, OTP in my mobile, or send me a link or to verify from that. Those are all trivias and we do not want, because we think that we are already safe. So the same thing happens with all around us. If people like us, we do not maintain this hygiene, how can we expect the common people maintaining the hygiene? My dear friends, all this technology can be very well leveraged. But coming back to the basic thing is this: it is not about the bank to have beautiful solution. It is not about the transactional organization. That means the communication organizations like TSP, Telephone Service Operator, and the ISP, Internet Service Operator, to have excellent network security. It is about the endpoint security, the security of the business correspondents, the banking correspondents, and all. So the baseline requirements should be call ground. Whosoever is going to call me, I should have some type of mandate or check that if that person says that he is calling from X bank, I can immediately verify the number pertains to the X bank or not. I can call him back and tell him, okay, sir, no problem. As you are, really whatever number from you are calling and you are saying that you are from the bank, just give me 5 minutes. I will check up with the list that your bank has and see whether your call getting generated from the number is available there. If that is not, I would request you to call me from a registered number so that I can verify. This is a very basic requirement. We can take it down to the last mile and tell. Browser level filtering. We can allow the browsers to guide me whether I'm going into the right direction or wrong. And the banking, I have made all my browsers enable on that aspect. So whenever I transact, and definitely from my own personal, connectivity and personal device, so my browser of that device actually ensures that I am going into the right, URL of the bank where I have an account. So voice assisted verification, so many, more than 3.7% of this country population is challenged in some manner. So what type of voice assisted and other, this friendly assistive verification process we can ensure? Can any bank or the banking, non-banking financial institution tell that I have some specific facility from these, person with disabilities or other challenges? Cyber hygiene practices for every banking correspondent. I have been a block development officer, I have been a subdivisional magistrate, I have been an additional district magistrate, and I have never seen any banking correspondent receiving regular cyber hygiene practices training. Continuous upskilling. The devices are getting updated, the softwares are getting updated, and nobody is getting getting upskilled. Inclusive security assurance posture by creating a quad, a four-pillar comprising financial market regulators, banking and non-banking institutions, government initiatives, and law enforcement agencies. I think this is the must. So what ails us? Our approach. Don't you understand? If we actually train the top, they will get better job. If we train the top, they will be replaced soon for better opportunity. So why are we always approaching any training from top to bottom? Why not bottoms up? Let me give you a very solid example. In cybersecurity excellence, that we created in 2017 November, till date we have trained more than 1,500, sub-inspectors, assistant sub-inspectors, constables, and more than 600 newly recruited officers. That means more than 2,100 police officials we have trained during the last 1.5 years, including the period of pandemic, for which we received this DSCI Excellence Award last year. Setting aside what has happened, we had only 5, cyber police stations in the entire state. The state having 500 police stations, we were only 5 police stations in the year 2018. And right now, in 2020 start, we have 31. 26 new police stations have come, cyber police stations. So what is happening? Earlier, we used to have in 5 police stations, we used to have in a total, in the entire year of 2017, we had less than 6,000 complaints, not FIRs, complaints, including GDs. And as we know, during the pandemic, it has topped 1.8 lakh in, comprising both GD, general diary, and FIRs. Can you imagine? We had to create a new second cyber lab, forensic lab, to help them. And we have the highest number of convictions in the entire country. Go back, Google, and find out. How did it happen? Because of our approach of bottoms up, to giving training to the constables, ASIs, and SIs. Remember, they do not actually investigate, in case of cyber crime. The cyber crime is investigated by an inspector. But do you think without them, any inspector can, investigate? No. So what we have to do collectively, this squad, for the entire BFSI sector, community inclusion. Every community has to. And from bottoms up, creating champion and promoting, then replicating that success in each of these communities. Then the redundancy creation. Even we know that there is no problem, we'll have redundant. As US is having redundant, these vaccines. and knowledge revaluation. By the time we come to the last, the first knowledge is already outdated. So the knowledge revaluation. These continuous process and cyclist process will bring us to the word that I started with, wisdom. And my dear friends, without wisdom, we are nowhere. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful presentation, and I hope our audience has given so much knowledge out of it. Now, I would like to start with our first panel session, which is on the importance of cybersecurity in the BFSI sector, cloud migration, and network firewalls. The panel speakers for this session are Sanjay Kumar Das, WCS Joint Secretary, Department of IT&E, and State Information Security Officer, West Bengal. Shiv Kumar Pandey, Group CISO, BSE Limited. Gaurav Sharma, AVP and Head Branch Operations and Digital Servicing, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance CO Limited. A. Shiju Rother, Chief Information and Technology Officer, Care Ratings Limited. Joydeep Datta, IT Strategy Consultant and Advisor, former ED and Group CTO, CDSL, who will be also moderating this session. A very warm welcome, sir, in the first of its kind webinar on cybersecurity and BFSI. So please take the honor to moderate the session.
Good morning to all once again. I just wanted to know since we are running very late and the first session has taken up most of the time that we had budgeted. Do we have some time guidelines on how much time we have? Because 12 o'clock we were supposed to finish. Any time guidelines from TimesTech?
So we have already provided the guidelines to all the panelists.
Okay, I'll just do whatever we can with the time that we have.
Sure, sir. Also, so I request everyone to please switch on their cameras.
Can we start?
Yes, sir, sure. Thank you.
Okay. Well, warm welcome to all the panel members who have joined us for this session. We will discuss about the importance of cybersecurity and especially in BFSI. Mr. Das, who represents the state government, is the only one who is not BFSI. The rest of us are all BFSI, and I think one speaker was not able to join. And the speakers that we have, they are representing very diverse companies. We have an exchange, we have an insurance company, and a dating agency, which are represented in the panel. And without wasting any more time, I would like to, I'll probably ask 3 or 4 questions, and I'll go around to all the panelists for their views on that question, maybe slightly different for some of the panelists. And then later on, we'll do the same routine for the second and third question until time runs out. I think we probably all know that BFSI is the most targeted industry by the cyber attackers. Mr. Das also mentioned that in the context of his keynote address. This is also because digital adoption is the highest in BFSI. I think any statistics that you see, BFSI is the highest in terms of digital adoption. And with more and more adoption of these services, digital and online services by the government, now it is accelerated by the pandemic, hackers will increasingly be targeting the governments. So I'll start with Mr. Das for his opening comments on how governments are dealing with cybersecurity. Some of that he might have already covered in his address. Are all state governments following similar strategies? And if so, does the central government guide them? How do the IT and cybersecurity teams function in the government? What are the data security measures to safeguard citizen data? What is the extent of outsourcing? And how do you keep updated on constantly changing security technologies? Over to you, Mr. Das.
Thank you, sir. As you have stated that I have taken a lot of time. So I have just recently shared in the chat our cybersecurity excellence portal. So I would request everyone who is seeing this thing, just give 2-3 minutes of each one of us, important time or to go through and understand how we are working. Number one. Number two, specifically how the government actually works. The state government, this IT is not a state subject. It is not in the union subject too. Neither it is in concurrent list. So it is a residual subject. That means in IT, whatever the parliament decides is binding upon the entire country. I don't know whether each one of you knows very diligently about this. Most of us have been with this knowledge that IT is a central list subject. No, it is not. It is not in the union list. It is in the residual list. So residual, anything kept in residual has obnoxious powers. So Parliament has, absolutely any power. So anything that the Parliament says, that is the mandate. So when we come to IT Act and with the changing rules and the whole fiasco going on across, we, the state government of West Bengal, we are religiously and judiciously, following the norms and practices enumerated by Ministry of Information Technology, Electronics, the CERTIN, the Computer Emergency Response Team of India, NCIIPC, which looks after the BFSI security as one of the planks and pillars of our country, and NSCS, that means the National Cybersecurity Coordinators Secretary. So as we are following them, we have created this Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. We have created the Directorate of, this state CERT, which is called West Bengal Computer Cybersecurity Incident Response Team. And on that, let me tell you, we have already had instances, many instances, on which from NCIPC and CERTIN, we are getting information. We are going down to and handholding the private organizations, even, banks. So we are getting exposed to a lot of challenges that the entire thing. And coming down to specifically BSFI, I would, fervently tell each one of you to give some of your time about the security posture that the cooperative banks recently had. I am assuring you, I am professing to you can write down with my signature that the next big cyber attack in India and destabilizing the entire gamut of financial structure of rural India is going to happen if we do not take immediate action to make our cooperative banks' data, approach, and posture secure. And that's why go back and see what happened with 2018 guidelines of RBI for all the cooperative banks, 2019 guidelines, then the 2020 guidelines. And for your information, you would be astonished to know the entire country's, cooperative banks, they are just sending a compliance report. And RBI does not have a separate wing to look after the security of cooperative banks. It has for the government, that means the nationalized bank as well as the private banks. No, it is not looking after, taking due care of cooperative banks as far as compliance is concerned. Everybody is signing, हमने बहुत कुछ कर लिया है, ये कर लिया, वो कर लिया है, और most of these organizations data are not even kept in this empaneled list of cloud service providers. That is the worst case scenario. So it might happen that a lot of these cooperative banks data are not kept physically in Indian soil. So my dear friends, what we are doing from the state government of West Bengal, we are going very strong with our state, rural central cooperative bank and all the rural cooperative banks. We are creating enormous awareness amongst them, and we are training them, giving them on-the-job training, and ensuring that they, practice cyber hygiene. There is one impediment. You must keep it in mind that most of these rural banks and the cooperative banks, they are headed by people's representatives. Until and unless those people's representatives, they understand the requirement of cybersecurity, these organizations will never be in competition as far as security is concerned with that of private banks or national banks. Thank you.
Okay. I will now shift to all the other BFSI panelists. We have heard from Mr. Das, and I agree that the maturity levels of different BFSI companies are very different. Cooperative banks are probably the least mature in the use of information security, but we don't have any representative from cooperative banks in this panel. I will go first, I think, to Shiv Kumar Pandey, who is from the BSc. Shiv Kumar is, I think his his video is switched off. Shiv Kumar, you're there?
It's okay. Yeah, I'm there. I can talk. Tell me.
Okay. So one of the things that we need to realize that among the BFSI companies, there are entities which are called market infrastructure institutions, of which BSc is one of the market infrastructure institutions. So the exchanges, the depositories, and the clearing corporations, these comprise the market infrastructure institutions under the capital market. So the maturity level of exchanges and other MIIs have to be much more than other companies in the BFSI sector. So since it is a very critical and national infrastructure, and we know that any attack on BSE will be national news and will adversely affect the reputation of the country. Now, I have been associated with the market infrastructure institution myself, so I'm aware of how seriously cybersecurity is being overseen by SEBI. Would you like to tell us, Shiv Kumar, about the regulator role and how stringent the policies and guidelines are, the criticality of DR policies and the drills that you do, having 100% capacity in primary as well as DR? Over to you, Shiv Kumar.
Thanks, Jaideep. See, I mean, in BFSI, if you talk about the capital market, especially for exchanges, if the CIA is a three pillars, then confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Then availability and performance is even more important for the exchanges, because how quickly you can access this. Just to tell you, a BSE operate in 6 microseconds per transaction. So time scale and accuracy has become very important, for any exchanges. And if I talk about on a cybersecurity point of view, then the people, process, and technology, all three aspects are very important. And here the technology role is even more important, because the number of the digital system and the sophisticated system which you have deployed is a huge and the large. So, and also being a national critical infrastructure, we are always on the radar of the target hackers and the attackers. So sophisticated attack like DDoS, malware, virus shipping, a lot, and telecommunication network, these kind of attacks are there. So here AI and ML is even become more important. So using machine learning, artificial intelligence, how most of the things you can automate the process or automation you can involve in the cybersecurity, that's become very important. And like we are using cognitive and machine learning technologies, and zero trust network architecture in the systems. And subscription to the multiple global and local cyber threat intelligence is also become very important, so that you quickly respond to such kind of attacks, or it can block at the perimeters levels only. Coming to when you're talking about the DR, so like in the capital market, especially in exchanges, we do actually DR mock drill, on regular interval. Also, we operate from our DR and BCP side, once in a quarters, for a week or for a 3 days. Actual operation is happening from those locations. And just to tell you, we have a very heavy penalties from a regulator point of view for any cyber incident. Not only cyber incident, but any kind of
Downtime.
point or not only downtime, not cyber audit also, if it is happening and if anything is coming, there is a heavy penalty. Similarly, there is a penalty on the organization and individual level also for DR also, if you are not meeting our RTO and RPO, or even if you are not meeting, taking a time, to declare the DRs on appropriate time. So the very strict guidelines on the regulator point of view, and we are also following religiously, to the DR and BCP drill on the regular interval at these locations.
Okay, I'm aware of the recent discussions going on that the CEO and the CTO will be penalized personally if there are downtimes and outages in the market infrastructure
Yes.
institution. I don't know
Yes.
whether that has become the circular yet, but it was in
Yes.
discussion that I last saw.
Yes.
I think what I'll do now is I'll go to Shiju. Shiju has been a veteran of the industry. He has been in a CISO role. He has done CTO, CIO. He's a multi-talented individual and currently with Care Rating, which is a rating agency. For those who are not aware, there are 6 rating agencies in India, Care, CRISIL, ICRA, and I think Fitch. Shiju will be able to tell. And they are also governed by SEBI, which is very interesting. And their rating is to do with rating of companies as opposed to CIBIL, which is Credit Bureau for individuals. Correct me, Shiju, if I'm wrong. Uh, Please tell us about the importance of cybersecurity for rating agencies and what are your practices. And since SEBI is also your regulator, they would have different rules which are pertaining to rating agencies. They have different rules for mutual fund that I'm aware, different rules for depository participants. We already talked about MII, and therefore SEBI is handling various subdivisions of the capital market, and rating agencies might have some different rules which many of us may not be aware. If you can highlight some of those rating agency rules, and maybe you can talk about your audit processes and DR rules, etc. Over to Shiju.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Joydeep. It was a very good question, and I think I've heard Mr. Sanjay and Shiv talking about it, and I think it comes very less to us when we speak last. So, given the cybersecurity from the BFSI sector point of view, I believe cybersecurity is important for all the segments and all the sectors, but irrespective of BFSI. BFSI is more looked upon because BFSI has tons of data, which relates directly to money. So end of the day, that's a motto and that's a motive more comes towards and attract towards the BFSI. Given for rating agencies and any sort of credit bureau, I have worked in both the segment. So most of the part of my career I had with a credit bureau, leading credit bureau, and the more key aspect come out over the data, because the data comes from different sectors, different customers, and that's how we become the custodians of the data. So it becomes very important prerogative for us to secure the customer data out over there. So it can be misused in terms of various aspects for putting in terms of the customer financial aspects. So data comes when it comes to us, it becomes very important for us. So it's a complete practice what we put out over here. So I believe everything from the basics that one has to build, because today when we talk about technology, when we talk about any of the cybersecurity, we talk about a lot of technologies and solutions, but how we always forget about the people and the process. So when we talk about people, process, technology, it's good to talk, but in out of the three, the weakest link is the people. And people set the process, people set the technology, and people build the technology, people configure the technology, people maintain the technology. So weakest link out over here is the people. So how you make sure that you have a qualified people, first of all, who understand the criticality of the data, because end of the day, processes will be followed by these people, technology will be operated by these people, implemented by these people. So you have to work from basics out over here. So that's the one focus what we do as a practice. Second, as a technology, when we implement it, we look upon to the basic and align to the business functions, how the business processes are being defined. So technology has to be adopted in terms of putting and aligned to the business functions, so that it can be more gel with the business process and the people can make use of it. So technology, I'm saying technology can be bought and invest at any point of time. Aligning toward the business is one of the key aspects. So basics are given very much focus out over there. I'm saying basics from when we talk about the data in rest, data in movement. How do we ensure who access the data? How do you ensure that accessibility of the data is to the limited people? And what the maker checkers are in those places, which technology will not do, wherein process plays a vital role out over there. Second, how do you ensure you have the visibility in terms of who is accessing your data? Consumer, when they access, how they access, what's the format they access, and how the internal consumers, who are the employees of the company, how do they access. So you need to have more and more visibility out over there. Again, I'm saying technology can build it up. We will have 100 of partners who will come and build you a fantastic class of the technologies to put it out any sort of threats you have. But internal processes are very important, which we have to do. Second aspect, from the DR perspective, when we talk about, again, a DR is a complete process. It's not only the technology uptime which has to come up, which is very easy. You can scale it up in the scalable computes or onto the clouds, but definitely you need to have the people aspect as well. Say, for example, complete city going down, you may not have the people to operate it. So what is the use of having the technology up over there and without consuming it? So we will have to plan it up in terms of complete business process management as well, when you have the availability from all aspects. So I'm sure every credit rating agencies who are governed by the regulators, they have got a checklist which they have to follow. But frankly, I believe on terms of looking from your business perspective as well, because anything going down, it's the one side you will have to pay the penalties and all, but definitely you are losing the business and you are losing the credibility in the market, which you will never be able to gain it back. So definitely you will have to build it up, the processes, which is much more business aligned, and you have to look upon from your future perspective how the business doesn't face any sort of disruption from technology attacks, or it could be from the technology availability perspective. So that's what I want to comment out over here, Jaideep.
Okay, Shiju, thank you for your comments. Gaurav is there. Gaurav from Bajaj Alliance. He was there just a few moments back, I think. Payal?
Yes, sir.
Gaurav is, I can't see Gaurav.
Sir, he has left. He was having some another meeting.
Okay. All right. So we'll continue without him. Next, so we have 3 panelists now, and again, we'll do a round of questioning. We should be having, what, 15-20 minutes time? How much? I don't know. We are already crossed the time, and the next panel is at 12:15 or something like that. We can extend it a little bit, because otherwise we have to stop at 12:15. Any guidelines on timings?
So we can extend it a little bit.
Okay, so I'll try to, let's do it quickly, and we'll have the answers a little short. We'll try to do that and try to squeeze as much information that we can. The next aspect which I think is relevant and which I would like to cover is about mostly about board role and the governance structures in institutions and companies. I think with cybersecurity threats becoming a concern for every IT responsibility, and often people confuse cybersecurity as it being an IT responsibility. It is not. It is for the entire company has to be involved in the cybersecurity framework, and they have to cooperate to make sure the cybersecurity is governed properly. And it is therefore a serious concern at board and management levels. And cybersecurity risk, I would consider it to be managed with as much discipline as we have any other risk. We talk about financial risk, credit risk, interest rating risk, etc. in the financial sector. But cybersecurity is probably even higher than those other risks. Because once there is a cybersecurity issue, and all the other risks are not even relevant. So we need to have very strong corporate governance and board roles. I would like to go to Mr. Das, and we'll try to keep it short, maybe a couple of minutes for each, 2 or 3 minutes for each panelist. How is the government process, governance process in the government being handled? I mean, you might have touched upon it a little bit in your earlier remarks. And what is the equivalent of board and corporate governance in the government? We are familiar with board and corporate governance, where you have a board of directors and we have a company set up. It is slightly different in governments. And what is the standard operating procedure for reporting incidents? I mean, there are procedures in the private sector and public sector companies, but in the government it might be slightly different. So if you can, maybe 2-3 minutes on that, and then we'll go to the other panelists.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, in government, as I told last time, that the entire process that this SOP is as per the laid down SOP of SARTIN and NCIPC. So the government actually maintains that process. So there is no doubt about that. Wherever there is an incident, it is reported following the norms laid down by SARTIN and NCIPC. As if it relates to financial sector, that means all this critical information sector like finance, health, and others, then both NCIPC and SARTIN is being sent the report. The report is sent to them, and if it pertains to non-critical sector, the report is sent to the SARTIN. And there is the state CERT. All these reports go via state CERT, and the remediation is done by the state CERT in consultation with SARTIN and NCIPC wherever it is. This is number one point. Number two, as you rightly said, that this cybersecurity is not the responsibility of the IT wing; it is the responsibility of the board. So, in government also, I have been seeing when we are trying from cybersecurity being a responsibility of the IT department of the government to the cabinet as well. So in that respect, we are trying to take them by creating the awareness, generating complaints, undertaking investigation, ensuring conviction, so that the government understands that law and order measures are being taken, and we cannot reduce the cyber crime if there is no deterrent. So we are creating more and more deterrents. So the law and order is being looked after by the state government, and it understands that the cyber security is the responsibility of the government, just like the board in case of corporate, and not the IT department, just like the IT wing in a corporate. Thank you so much.
Shiju to go first, and I'll ask him question to Shiv Kumar. Now his camera is on.
It's okay. It's okay. I can talk.
He had to go to the you had to go to the hospital for an emergency, so which is why your camera is off. I think I just, for the benefit of others,
Yes.
I'm just saying that you told me in the morning that. So you want to go first, Shiv Kumar, and then Shiju can go.
No.
Next.
Yeah, I can go first. Not an issue.
Okay,
then I'll drop it out.
Yeah. So 2-3 minutes. No, there'll be some more questions. You try to stick around. If you have more time, I'll have some other questions as well.
No. Yes. Yeah.
So go ahead.
So regarding for the board involvement, I can say cybersecurity is you can look it as the enterprise-wide risk management issue rather than only on a cybersecurity. So and if you talk about the board is now aware because of so many incidents are happening and all. And we also keep on doing board awareness also for the same. We have a regular meeting, regular presentation is also there in each and every board meeting for half an hour is given. We are also doing a tabletop exercise. When I'm thinking about tabletop exercise, and we have even involved the board member also. Like cybersecurity, when you're talking about it, is not just one in the IT risk, so then incident management, corporate communication team is involved, HR team is involved. Yeah. Even law enforcement agency is involved. So once you're doing, because one single incident, even in a false incident can, especially on the stock exchanges in the market, begin do the nuisance. So when I'm talking about the tabletop exercise, it should be like, all the stakeholders, whether, somebody is handling media and corporate communication, somebody is in a law enforcement agency, regulators, IT, which is doing the actual the root cause analysis of the incident. So it's the involvement for all the stakeholders, how you can safeguard, from the organization for this kind of cybersecurity incident. So tabletop exercise is also must when I'm saying this. And board involvement is must because cybersecurity is a top-down approachment. When it is, when I'm saying a top-down approachment, it should be forced to everyone.
Shiju, same question to you.
I think from my perspective, everyone who touch the digital piece in the organization is responsible for this piece, because it's board only can guide you. A board only can help you in terms of facilitating investments or helping you to replan the time, but definitely all the executions is responsible for everyone. So that's how it comes under the business functions and all the functions who is involved in touching the technology day by day. Now technology team can only do the execution part or monitoring part, but definitely the business is also equally involved, should have to be involved in these all processes, and board has to govern. So board can only do the governance, because board members doesn't monitor, doesn't look upon, they only look upon from the eagle's eyes, and they can only felicitate you in terms of what you want to ease your executions, ease your business processes, and from the customers and the stakeholder perspective or from the regulator's perspective. So they can only help us to build that bridge. But definitely all those internal things employees are supposed to do, and employees who touch the technology points are equally important and equally responsible for that executions. So that's my perspective.
See, there is a lot of media on why boards are not having good representation of people coming from IT backgrounds. I think that problem Shiv Kumar Pandey doesn't have. Ashish Chauhan, who is the MD and CEO, he happens to be an IT person himself in his past avatars. But in most boards, IT is not represented. So when you say board just does oversight or just they are like informed about things, I think it is important that there is IT representation in the board as well. And at least one of the members of the board are from IT. That's just an observation. I think it so happens that BSc has board MD who's a former CIO. So that problem he doesn't have. Quickly, I'll go to the next question. I'll ask Shiv Kumar first. I think we'll finish at 12:30. Just, I think, what's the time now? 12:20. Another 10 minutes, we'll wrap it up. Maximum 2 minutes each, 2-3 more questions. One is about cloud adoption. I think with the increase in adoption of digital technologies and availability of cloud infrastructure, there has been increased adoption of cloud. And the BFSI companies have been generally slower in cloud adoption due to regulation ambiguity, I would say, bluntly ambiguity, because it is not very clear from any regulation whether going to the cloud is right or not. The only guideline probably is that should the data stay within the country or go outside the country, which is again something which is very difficult to monitor and actually enforce. I mean, that is up to the cloud service provider to follow that discipline. I mean, if some copy is there outside the country, I don't think we will even know about it. So it is just a guideline to follow where the data has to be inside the country. So the question to all, and this time I'll start with Shiv Kumar and then Shiju, and the last I'll go to Mr. Das from the government. The question is, what is the extent of cloud adoption in your respective companies? And have there been any challenges to the migration? For example, some applications are not amenable to putting on the cloud. And any other challenges that you faced, and what is the extent of cloud adoption in your companies? Shiv Kumar first, then Shiju, and then I'll go to Mr. Das.
So, Jaideep, I think you are rightly pointed out. I mean, we are very highly regulated company when you're talking about the exchanges. And normally we prefer to everything should be on premises. But yes, because most of the application today, their architecture and framework is like on the cloud platform. So we are not, it's a matter of time. You are forced to go on the cloud or maybe in a hybrid cloud. So now we have deployed, the private cloud in our environment. There are some application which is non-critical. We are going on the cloud also. The biggest thing is, as you said, is the data geographic is a major concern, for regulatory and privacy regulation requirement. This is the concern. So normally we force whenever we are going the cloud environment, the first question is that whether your data center is there in the geographic locations or not. And second thing, whether the audit is possible or not, if required in the future and all. And there are some limitation, especially on the technology point of view also, especially on the security. Data security is a concern, privacy is a concern. And especially, the logging and event management may be very limited in this kind of environment. So I'm not saying there are the security challenges also when we are talking about the cloud adoption, but yes, the future is a cloud adoption, and we are also going at some of the application which you have deployed on the cloud. So these are the challenges which I'm facing. And
If
especially
you took
when you have a risk and the cybersecurity centralized environment, at your central location, again integrating, the complete access controls from on premises to the cloud. So sometime it is feasible, and some of the technology it is not feasible. So those are the challenges.
Shiju, 2 minutes.
Yeah, within 2 minutes, it's too short to talk about the cloud. But definitely,
Okay, three minutes.
No, I'm saying definitely I would like to discuss on the era when we started our career, when we have seen the data centers used to be in the common room. So there used not to be a separate data centers all put together. So it used to be one side of the office used to be put out a rack wherein all the servers used to be put out over there and used to work on the fans and all. Then moved gradually towards the data centers when you had some sort of facilities which started playing in. So people, when they used to walk into the office, they used to miss those racks which used to be on the way. So it used to be unseen. People never saw the racks. Half of the people have never seen the data center, how it's getting operated within the office. Then gradually it moved from there to the co-location centers. And that's how it started becoming unseen from the technology guys also. Now it has moved a bit far. So it has moved towards the clouds, what we name it. So practically it doesn't make any difference for operation. So that's how it started moving from internal office to the data center to the co-location to the cloud. It depends on your business use cases also, how flexible you want your business to be, or how scalable you want to use the features of the cloud within your business perspective. So it depends all in your business use cases. If you need more and more scalability and more agility, you may look for cloud options. And definitely it's an era that no one is being spared out of the cloud. So what we use a handheld devices, a handphone, that's all connecting to the cloud. So I'm saying everything is working because you need scalable platform. So I say organizations, yes, we too are adopting the cloud because we are looking for more scale, and we are not in a business of managing the traditional data centers and all those things. So I'm saying we want to be out of that all setup. So that's how the adoption towards the cloud is coming, because you are free away from procurement, hardwares, managing those assets, life cycles. So everything moves out from that. You can focus more and more towards business. You can focus more and more towards building a platforms and serve the customers at their doorsteps. So I think adoption is there. Everyone is adopting because of the business needs now.
Okay. I think just a quick comment on adoption of cloud. I mean, some companies have the tradition of doing capex investments and charge depreciation into their books. If you do it on the cloud, you cannot do that. So you are sometimes governed by what your CFOs want the expense to be, whether it's a capex or opex. Yeah. That is a drawback in terms of going to the cloud. You cannot do capex on the cloud. It has to be opex. Exactly. And I think another thing is that adoption of the cloud, I have seen in my experience, some applications not geared to be deployed on the cloud. So you need to make changes in the application to be able to deploy it on the cloud. And of course, nowadays that problem is almost non-existent. But like 10 years back when the cloud really started, there was a big challenge about cloud deployment and the capability of those applications to be deployed in the cloud.
And Jadip, I think one more thing is like it's a quick and fast. If you
that is true. That is true.
Temporary, that very small period of initially you want to start quick and fast, and later depending upon the volume or a business you want to deploy, go for then second phase you want to go for that.
See, another thing which we say it is very easy to go to the cloud, etc. Another point which we sometimes may not realize is the spending in the cloud is not necessarily cost saving. It could be more cost. At the end of the day, it could be more cost. So it has to do with the scale of what you do on the cloud, which will make it cost feasible. Otherwise, the notion that people might have is if you go to the cloud, costs come down. That is actually not true. Mr. Das, maybe a couple of minutes from you on that same question about cloud adoption in the government. You're mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
Yeah.
Actually, let me tell you that from 2018, not a single rupee is transacted physically. So you understand that every financial transaction, as it happens on this through application. So we are already into cloud, and we understood that taking cloud from the private party will entail costs. So under Government of India's MNP policy, we started our own cloud data center. Initially, it was a hybrid center. In 2012, we started. 2014, we implemented. And 2016, we actually graduated into full cloud. And right now, we are a tier 3 data center uh, with all sorts of benchmarks. So it is an entirely, cloud-based data center that we operate. And we operate internally. That means with our own people, 100% own people, and we have hundreds and thousands of applications, more than 1,700 critical applications. And right now we are enlarging it to 1.5 petabyte data center very soon within the next 3 months. So you understand that as far as cloud conversion is concerned, so we are mostly into it. All our government applications have been moved to cloud. If not, they are under the process of moving. So we are completely this thing. We are not urging, or we are not facilitating them to keep their own data center, like localized co-located data centers, or their own servers. We are urging them to move into the cloud environment of the state government. So we are very strong proponent and propagator and supporter of cloud transition.
Okay, I think it is 12:30. I had a few more points to discuss. I think we are running out of time. I will probably close now unless we are allowed another 5-10 minutes, also subject to the availability of the other panelists. I think we probably need to close. 12:30, the next panel was to start at 12:15, if I'm not mistaken. Just on closing, I would like to say that I think the cost of protection is disproportionately higher than the cost of attacking. It is the hacker with very little financial resource can penetrate enterprises, especially those who do not continuously secure themselves and adopt newer and newer technologies which are coming into the market. I think I would like to thank you all, to the speakers, to the organizers, to the sponsors, and thanks to the audience who has been patiently watching, and we didn't have any time for questions. Thank you all. Over to Payal.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks to our panelists. So before closing the first session, I will take the honor to give the felicitation to our prominent panelists and the moderator of this session for sharing their valuable inputs and expertise. Now, I would like to announce the awards for the first session. Sanjay Kumar Das, WBCS Joint Secretary, Department of IT&E and State Information Security Officer, West Bengal. Next is Shiv Kumar Pandey, Group CISO, BSE Limited. Gaurav Sharma, AVP and Head Branch Operations and Digital Servicing, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance CEO Limited. Joydeep Datta, IT Strategy Consultant and Advisor, former ED and Group CTO, CDSL. Shiju Rother, Chief Information and Technology Officer, Care Ratings Limited. Now, we will be starting with our second session with a very meaningful and insightful keynote presentation by S. Ravi, former chairman of Bombay Stock Exchange, founder and managing partner of Ravi Rajan and Co. Let us begin with our next session. Over to you, sir. Ravi sir, are you there? Also, I request everyone to kindly switch on their cameras.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Um, so I just got admitted. So sorry for this delay. So thank you, and thank you for inviting me, and I welcome my other panelists also, and Mr. Sarangi, Mr. Jadhav, and of course Babita, and all of you for being a part of this. So this whole is a very tropical subject, and it's a very it's a subject that we all are so passionate about. And I would like to say the following as far as this whole topic of risk management and cybersecurity is concerned. First and foremost is, let us look at the environment. The last 2 years, we have increased our digital reach by about 35% approximately. And we have also started uh, using our own laptops or whatever devices that we want. That is, we are using that. So everybody is using their own device. And if you look at the cyber threats and the cyber frauds that have happened, it has increased by about 28 to 30%, 35% in various sectors. Banking is about 28%. So, so the need for this risk management and the cyber threats that are there is very, very relevant in today's context. And if you look at the journey of India itself for the last 3-4 years or 4 years after demonetization, where digital was the focus, and then this COVID pandemic twice has actually brought everybody to work from home, and that's the importance of this. And also, there are issues of anything that goes wrong, the brand itself gets very, very badly dampened. I remember an insurance company where 5 lakh customers' details were out, and then people did not go for reinsurance. So you can have these type of situations. So the impact can be right from a small amount to a very big brand collapse or an impact on the brand. So I'm seeing various sort of challenges that are coming across in this whole space. Now, how to manage this whole space? So, first of all, I was listening to the previous panel, and it was talked about the board management and all that. And I personally feel that the whole risk management runs across the whole company. It does not, it's not top, it's not bottom, it's not middle management. The risk management process is actually the responsibility of the whole organization. The policies can be framed up at the top. You can monitor them, but the policies rightly today have to be followed. Protocols have to be followed. Employee conduct on IT has to be very strong, and it has to be followed from a small person who is sitting in some place doing sales to a person who is managing director. So that is the level at which we all have to be prepared, and that is what is the key for how to go about in any organization. Now, coming to risk management. Risk management, you take, it can be a business risk, it can be people's risk, it can be any risk. But the last 3 years, there has been a lot of focus on IT risk, IT infrastructure, and all that connected with cyber threats. That's that risk. And if you take a risk matrix as a whole, the percentage of the IT risk is somehow getting to be higher. And that is what is the key. How to sort of mitigate that risk, because business risk is always there, because the business model will provide the business risk, but IT risk is also becoming very significant. So I think the balance between this and that is becoming very important, especially in the financial sector space. Banks, where confidential data is given off by every customer, that is to be protected. We have to eradicate frauds. So just to tell you, last week there was a portal that was inaugurated on making complaints. 15 lakh complaints in 2 months, and a fraud of, and that are small ones, 1.8 crore fraud in 2 months in the small customer zone. And so Government of India started a small portal at various levels where you can make a complaint. So you can imagine the level at which there is an awareness that has been created, because the fraudsters are actually right there ahead of all of us. So that brings the importance of risk management to a great extent. Now, every organization, based on its business model, will have a risk management assessment. Now, if it's a bank, it has a different risk management. So the business model will drive the risk management principles. And first and foremost, the duty of everybody is to first understand what are the risks. Identifying the risk. The next stage is to see what will be the impact of the risk or evaluating the risk. Then the third stage will come, how do we mitigate those risks? Then fourth stage comes is, how are we going to evaluate that risk, whether what we have done, whether it is monitored correctly, and whether we have been we are efficient in managing our risks. And the last but not the least, which is it's a continuous monitoring process. You cannot let your, you can't be off the site, because the risk can come in IT from any factor, any sector. So the evaluation of risk becomes very important. So you can have an issue of systems issue, you can have a hardware issue, you can have people's issue in the risk management, whether people are sharing their password, whether in case of trading, whether there is an arm's length, whether everything is recorded, whether even as much in the board. Let me tell you, today, if a confidential, because I've been in many boards and I'm in boards, so we don't prefer now to have email agenda at all. Like to have board packs. As much as we can secure ourselves, why should it go through the mails? So, and we have systems where even somebody downloads an email, it can come as an alert. Somebody takes a printout of a email, we can get downloads, or we'll get an alert. So I think the confidential information, data sharing, and especially see, today board meetings are not held physically, it's all held virtually. What about a business plan that I make for 3 years? And I am a very important constituent. Every board member is a constituent. Top management is a important part of it. And if that gets leaked, so I think everyone at every level is sort of mitigating those risks. Like I mentioned, board packs. Board packs, even if I open the board pack, there will be an alert which will be there that I have used the board pack for 4 hours or 5 hours. I have seen these items. I can get to that extent, and that is what even the board members, there are eyes on them. So that is the level which we have moved, because yes, in yesteryears we were physically there. I used to attend board meetings physically. So now we don't attend board meetings. We attend seminars like this, and similarly we attend board meetings like this. So, and then what, the board meetings are recorded. So what are the views? Because there are regulators. I was listening to the previous panel a little bit towards the end. There are regulators who take care. What are the views that we express? So everyone has to sort of be conscious of the fact that things have changed. And things have changed right at the top. And things are changing right across the company. For example, a person at a sales, at a very small remote place, is putting a sales figure. Can it reach to the competitor? So my view is, how protected and encrypted are we in this whole process? And that is the key as far as I am concerned. Means assessing our risk and seeing what will be the impact if these risks happen. Do we take an impact analysis? Suppose, just to say, we had a failure of one of the exchanges about 4 months ago, 3 months ago. What was its impact? What did it happen? What, with the, data stolen by a credit card company, from a credit card company, what is the impact? Data that has gone from, insurance company, what is the impact? So the impacts is not only financial, it is on the brand. And that is what I think it is important to address the risk. And, there are multiple methods, and more than just making volumes of what is a risk management manual. How do you actually start implementing it? Does somebody really monitor those risks? I was a part of a BSc, and I know that there was a regular presentation that was happening. I was chairman of BSc. Mr. Jadhav is there now. So we were monitoring it, and Mr. Shiv also, who was in the previous panel, was keeping us aware. So the board members were sort of, made aware of it. And even I can tell you, so much so, even in the auditing profession that I have, I'm a certified, I'm a DSA, and I am supposed to know everything. And the data, the whole of the merger between two banks which we handled, I can tell you, was done with so much secure transmission protocol, because pre-merger data, if it gets out, what happens? The swap ratios, etc., etc. So there are challenges, and from a small person's account being hacked, small person's money, losing money, even small issues like even selling bitcoins today. See, one more thing, bitcoins. Everybody is saying about talking of bitcoins and cryptocurrency, but what is fake and what is real, and what are the impacts? So if you look at each segment of whatever you take, you will find that IT is the backbone today. Apart from finance, IT is the backbone. And I think that is the most important aspect. One more thing that I would like to emphasize very strongly, and that is the technological literacy. So I remember, and in lighter vein, I went to outside a place, and there was demonetization. He asked me, "Sir, kaise paise nikalenge? How would I take money?" So I told you, go through your mobile app and do it. He gave me the passcode. He was not he was ignorant. He gave me his passcode. Now, so the awareness, and I think the key is the awareness in the system, the customers also. It is not only the employees, it is the customers who have to be aware. I can't keep on sharing everything. So this is my first take on risk management. People's risk as a technological risk, and it's a combination of everything. And I think we need to mitigate it, we need to evaluate it, and we need to monitor it, and be vigilant and look forward for everything. Now coming to the second part, and there I won't take much time. They are very, very good speakers behind me, and they are experts in their field. And I would just like to say that the technologies have also to protect the threats that come in, and that is the cyber threats that are going to be there. The technology also is going to be there, along with data protection. Do I archive my data? Where do I archive them if I don't require? What is data which I don't require? What I require on a daily basis? I think data management is going to be the key. As we talk of cyber threats, data management, because what? The cyber threat is basically eating on the system. There can be eating on the technology that is there, or the platform, or the ignorance of the customer, or the vulnerability of the system itself. So it is very, very imperative, and that the system and the data management is equally important, because that is the cause of problem. And I think, suppose there are inoperative, just to give an example, inoperative accounts. Somebody can misuse inoperative accounts. So automatically inoperative accounts should be flagged off and put across where nobody can access without the permission of somebody senior. So like this, small things at every level can remove cyber threats to a great extent. We cannot eradicate it. We will have problems and challenges, but I think from a system point of view, we'll have to be on the top of it. So every aspect of data management, the systems control, and also looking at the technological platform that is there. What are the vulnerabilities there? Are they being tested regularly? And are the people who are managing those technologies, are they conscious of all those top level decisions? So, and people awareness, that is what it is all about. So I thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I have more better speakers than me across, so I put it on to them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for this insightful keynote. So now we are going to start with our panel discussion, which is on risk management and safeguard technologies against cyber attacks. The panelists for this session will be Babita BP, CISO, CSP Bank Limited; Manoj Sarangi, SVP and CISO, National Securities Depository Limited; Shankar Jadhav, Managing Director, BSE Investments Limited and Head Strategy, BSE; S. Ravi, former Chairman of Bombay Stock Exchange, founder and Managing Partner of Ravi Rajan and Co., who will be moderating this session. A very warm welcome, sir, in the first of its kind webinar on cybersecurity and BFSI. Sir, please take the honor to moderate this session, and I request everyone to please switch on their cameras.
So we'll go by the order of the day, which is I think let me get on to the order. I think the order that I was given. I think Mr. Manoj Sarangi, please your views, and then we'll keep it brief, and then maybe we'll have more questions. And this thing, let us keep it brief. And Mr. Sarangi, welcome, and nice to have you here. And please.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. And let me start with the theme of the session. And when you delve into risk management, the usual way of handling risk has been, mitigate, transfer, avoid, or accept. And it has seen a major change during the pandemic, and the risk emanating from the cyberspace has become very persistent and prevalent in workspace and working from home has only given rise to the threats that has been encountered in last decade or so. And now, just a while back, I just came to know that a French bank is now stopping payment for any ransomware. So what they are saying is ransomware is a type of blackmail, and there is no insurance payment can be made on that, even if it is a cyber threat or cyber attack. So that is something that has been changing. And the risk management, traditionally, when either the impact or the probability is low of a risk, that need not be mitigated. But that has changed during the pandemic. The impact has been very high, and even if the probability is low, now the organizations are considering those risks need to be mitigated, where the impact is high, even if the probability is very low. So that's a change in paradigm shift in handling how the risks have been handled so far. And when you talk about the technology, I agree with Mr. Ravi. And technology cannot alone solve the problem. What I say is impactful technology with strong processes and active participation from the people, the workforce. That is the key to mitigate or address any cyber threats. And overarching, you should have a complete architecture of how you handle the threats and build your ecosystem. And right now there has been kind of a rush to new technology, new structure and all. And zero trust is something that has been adapted by organization. So I trust nothing. When you start a transaction, you are unknown, I know nothing about you, I don't trust you. You must validate and prove your identity every time you do any transaction or anything, any operations that you do. So that's some a paradigm shift in terms of trusted model to zero trust model. The second thing that we have been building all around since let's say a couple of years back is integrated systems. So integrated systems give rise to integrated identities and people trusting blindly when someone enters the ecosystem. That is probably is going to change. So we have loosely coupled systems where trust has to be established in each of the systems and then verified each time any transaction is made. The third or the most important part of the thing is in cyber threat management is practice. Practice is drills. You do drills, use enact scenarios, make sure that people are doing the things they're expected to do, and practice it over and over again. I think the previous panelist also spoke about cyber drills, which is also very important to mitigate the cyber risk up to a very large extent. So with this opening remarks, I'll just hand it over to the next panelist to take it ahead.
So I request Babita ji, please, your views and your.
Yeah, thank you, sir. It is really glad to be part of this panel discussion. And in a nutshell, within a period of 10 minutes, you have completely given us a light on what and all things that need to be taken care, especially from the risk management perspective, right from the people, process, and technology. So whenever we talk about risk management, we always concentrate on these three parts, which is very key to the risk management. And as you rightly mentioned, sir, we have to create a security culture in the organization. When it comes to a risk management, the culture of the organization always is a fact. And based on that culture only, we have to define our methodologies and assessments that we have to go through for taking care of the different gaps. And see, architectural review is a prime thing which I always concentrate on, because architecture varies from organization to organization. what fix to me may not be the fix for the others. So it is a key role, a responsibility of a risk manager to ensure that I am identifying the gaps correctly, which is relevant to me, and I have to prioritize it and have to give the timeline within which I have to fix the gap. So that kind of a security culture we have to create, and the people should be made aware that we have to follow it and it should be part of our life. When it comes to phishing mail or a kind of thing, I never tell the employee that you shouldn't be afraid that I have clicked on a link. If you have clicked on the link, please let us know. That is what. See, we cannot hold everything. We might be in a busy schedule. We might come across, we might click on the link, or we might come across a phishing mail. But the thing is, like, the people should be taught to tell that, okay, I have clicked it. Please help me out, or please take care of it. That is the only information that need to come from our end users, so that we can take necessary actions at the right time. So that kind of a culture, I always believe in the awareness in cybersecurity. Now, why we are talking more about cybersecurity during this time of pandemic? Is it because cybersecurity threats or frauds was happening for the first time? No, it was happening earlier also, but the instances has increased. Because the people started using digital platform for each and every activities in their life. But are these people aware of the way they have to use the systems? No. As you have rightly mentioned, someone has already given you the password to key into the system, because he just want to do, his intention is to transfer the money or get the money. But what secure way, or whether I am doing it in a secure way, he is not aware of that. So it is our responsibility to ensure that our customers are made aware of the cyber threats and frauds and the what and all methodologies these fraudsters are keeping doing with them to get the money out of it. All these frauds which has come into enlightenment was not because the banks or organizations got hacked. It is by looting the people, illiteracy or awareness, lack of awareness in the people with which they are looting the money. So the basic is that we have to create this cyber awareness right from our end users. And technology is already in place, and we practitioners are doing enough to tackle from the organization's perspective. But what we are going to do for the general public who is being looted by these fraudsters? And this cybersecurity risk assessment is a very, very vast topic. We can talk for many hours for each topic. So I just, for the matter of time, this is just my opening view. And as you rightly mentioned, data protection bill is coming to existence shortly. And when organization collecting the data, are we ensuring that only relevant data is collected? Only data that is required for me to process, are we collecting that particular data alone? From that point onwards, we have to think how we are securing the data.
Thank you.
I will give it to you back, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this message of culture. It's a fact. So, Mr. Jadhav, I request you, and let us be short so that we can give opportunity to people to chat more. And I think so that they can put, it becomes a little more interactive for us.
Good afternoon, sir. You made very good points in your keynote. Let me take it forward from there. We talked about why companies actually have to, or organizations have to manage risks and cybersecurity. Let me tell you, it's a fact which I have seen through friendly discussions with lots of CISOs and CIOs and IT professionals, that unless it's a mandate by the regulators, many of them don't take it seriously. Second is the consequences of not managing the risks. If they are not high, then they are not taken seriously. So what Mr. Ravi pointed out, that the customer, if he loses the money, it is not really a big risk to the organization. So they don't really go for education of the customer, etc. In a country which has so high a illiteracy, with so many illiterate people, you expect them to own some smart device and do very risk-averse transactions is not going to happen. What we are doing is we are all working in an area where we are saying for the rich, for those haves, we will do everything, and for the have-nots, we will not do anything. I can tell you, I have people, even in my organization, others, who are differently abled. So if someone can't see, how will he do this smart transaction? He has to tell something to someone. We are expecting him. Supreme Court has said something. We have to develop something for them, but in our daily lives, we really don't have time for it. The government has to step in and do something to get them trained on all those things. But about talking about BSE or other such financial organizations and the risk management, as Mr. Ravi said, for many years we have been having the board involved in day-to-day risk management. The consequences of risk not being managed in non-IT side are huge. You can see the NPAs in the banks and etc. etc. The IT risks are not as huge as in as a non-IT risk today in India. Yes, across the world it's a different scenario. The IT risks are very high, but the IT risks will become very high in sooner or later. We are doing some things which are not properly handled. For instance, we are trying to index everything to one number. Today, if I go to a bank to open an account, they ask me for a physical copy of my Aadhaar card or a physical copy of my PAN card. I think that has to be stopped. We have to do something. It has to be linked to a central government database or whichever database, and it should directly take from there. I just have to quote a number, they should verify. These kind of things, we have to look at it. Otherwise, we are going to get into more and more IT mess. And as Mr. Ravi pointed out, one more thing, that most of the frauds in IT sector also not because of the IT software and hardware, but because of human beings. I'll stop over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jadhav. I had I had interacted with him in my course as chairman, so it was always great to. The IT team there is very good. Must compliment the whole team, and they used to keep us aware of everything, and that is so the awareness is the key as far as everything is concerned. But one point I would like, before we take up some chats and questions, the first thing that I would like to say, that top management is always, and I'm not talking of banks, or I'm not talking, everybody is conscious of the cost. And let me tell you, in the pandemic, some people have that business model itself ruined. Manufacturing companies, for example. So through these 3 to 6 months, they have not produced anything, manufactured anything. And then we want a robust IT system. We want to spend 200 crores, 100 crores, 50 crores on them. So for them, it doesn't make business sense. So I think a good organization which is profitable, the top management must look 5 years ahead. And the architecture, which Babita said very, very clearly, we should look at the architecture. And I think that is what is very important. So the top management has to be a little liberal. It has to give the empowerment to the people to spend, to upgrade, and to increase the IT infrastructure. And because people are very conscious of the fact that what they spend. So I think a culture and also that people are ready to put their, the top management should also give the spends to the people. And that is all is very important. I personally feel that that is also very, very important. One point more that I want to make, a disgruntled employee leaving an organization. What are the SOPs to that? So the SOPs are going to be very important as we move forward. So I will leave it at that, ready to take questions, because actually we realize that we are behind, and I know the importance of time. And so I would, any participant, any questions, we are ready to take it. So can we, Payal, we can take questions?
Yes, sir. If anyone has any question.
Or we continue the discussion, whichever way you want.
So actually, we are running short of time.
So please, 1 or 2 questions, and then
yeah,
we
sure,
will,
sir.
So we would not like to come into, because I know you have the next panel at 1:30, and I know you will have to grab something for lunch too. So why not quickly?
Yes, sir, sure.
Anybody has a question, or we close the session?
Sir, I would like to state here, as you mentioned, a very important point about money coming for IT handling. Unlike our company, where we have lots of engineers in top management, many of the organizations, whether it's manufacturing or others, don't have a person from STEM. When I say engineers, I won't mean STEM, science, technology, etc. So they don't understand the importance that IT has in today's world. Like a few decades back, finance had a very large involvement. So we used to have always finance people in the board. I think today they are realizing the problem is the finance, you take a person and he has to give ideas. You don't have extra cost after that. Or there may be costs, but they are like audit or some other things. But in technology, the costs are huge, both not only of equipment, but also managing through AMCs. That one has to think of, and we have to have cheaper alternatives, which are standard. So there are lots of organizations in IT. For instance, in BSc, we started using Linux also. So we can go ahead with that. And I think that people should realize that open source software and hardware are quite good, and they're also robust and secure. So that is also one thing that we can look at. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also just one corollary.
Please, Mr. Sarangi.
Just a corollary to what you told. See, the cost is definitely a consideration, but because I have worked in manufacturing, I understand it very well. And the only thing that brings any spend to any initiative is two things. One is cost of a breach, or a productivity loss that can be quantified. So I have done both to get the cost justified. Let's say for a spam protection, okay, if 200,000 spam go to 1,000 employees, how much time they spend in responding to spam or clicking on that? If we can get a productivity report out of it, and I have justified that, I have done that in the past, that justifies the spend on protecting it. The second thing is, I think I agree with Mr. Yadav. Consequence is very important. He spoke about the consequence, but another angle to consequence is, what is the probability of getting caught? Probability of getting caught, we have to increase that, and the consequence of that, that will basically bring down the cybercrime. If you are highly probable that you will get caught, and the consequence is very high, together that will reduce the cyber threats. So that's a very important point. I just wanted to bring it.
Yes, sir?
Yeah.
One more point I would like to add on to this. Always security field or IT will be considered as a cost center. It is never a profit center for anything. But here, one more thing I would like to pinpoint is, whenever we are going for a technology, first thing we have to ensure that whether it is required for our business. Instead, now I have seen a sudden surge in the cloud technology, adoption to cloud technology or AI or bot kind of thing. If my organization is a small one, why I need a AI kind of thing for a automation? So whenever IT professionals are going for some technology, they should analyze that. So what I have and what is my the growth for the next 5 years, and based on that only we have to leverage for the technology. And many a times the bot and all may not be required. And the volume, so if it is an e-commerce kind of a site, of course I say bot is required because the hit is phenomenal. Lakhs and lakhs of hits are coming. But if otherwise, for a manufacturing company to have a bot in their website, I don't think that is required. So that also will be a confusion for the management to decide on what technology is actually required. And the IT team should clearly mention that the profit out of it, what this technology will bring to the organization. So once we are able to prove that, then I'm sure that our management will be with us to go ahead. And moreover, whatever technology we have, first thing what we have to keep in mind is whether we are utilizing the technology the way need to work. Whether we are configuring it, whether we are reviewing the configurations, are we using all the features which has been provided by that particular software? So all those things we have to ensure. Without that, just if I have a next gen firewall and I am not putting a configuration in the right way, then it is of no use. But I have already spent money for it. So that is also very relevant.
So thank you so much. Just to summarize, everybody in the panel has talked about the importance. We have talked about the culture. We have talked about the costs. We have talked about people. And we have also talked about the difference between various business models to others. So I think whatever time Payal gave us, I think we are, as all of us together, my co-panelists, everybody, we have kept our timelines. So I thank each one of you for contributing. I wish this session was longer. We could have learned from each other. But thank you so much for contributing and giving your viewpoints. Payal, over to you. And I hope your chats, which you said that we have to be brief, we have been as brief as possible within the limited time frame.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And thanks to all our panelists. Before closing the second session, I will take the honor to give the felicitation to our prominent panelists and the moderator of this session for sharing valuable inputs and expertise. Now, I would like to announce the awards for the second session. Babita BP, CISO CSB Bank Limited. Manoj Sarangi, SVP and CISO National Securities Depository Limited. Shankar Jadhav, Managing Director, BSE Investments Limited and Head Strategy, BSE. S. Ravi, former Chairman of Bombay Stock Exchange, Founder and Managing Partner of Ravi Rajan & Co. Now we are taking a short 15 minutes break. See you all at 1:30. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Audio. Audio Jungle.
Welcome back to all of you on Times Tech Cybersecurity and BFSI Virtual Conclave. So let's start this very meaningful conference with a very insightful keynote presentation by Dr. Suresh A. Shan, Head Innovation and Future Technology, BITS Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services Limited. Over to you, sir. Suresh, sir, are you connected with us? Suresh, sir, are you there? Can you please start?
Hello.
Hello, yes, sir.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
You're able to hear me, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, you can start with your keynote. I have already introduced you.
Good afternoon, Suresh sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon,
Good to
Krishna.
see you.
Yeah, Vijay sir.
Very good afternoon, Mr. Suresh.
Yeah, good afternoon. No, I thought after generally 1:30 after lunch, people will take some time, but no, things are going on time, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's good.
That's good. Madam, shall I start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure.
So you have to invite Sudhin also as a panelist.
Sudhin has come?
Sudhin is joined.
Yeah, hi everyone. Great to see you all, you guys. Hope you're all doing
Same,
great.
Same here. Like
After a long time, Sudhin, good to see you.
Yeah, I think we have been on other panels, so this is the first time we are coming together. So we can't avoid each other.
Generally, Fridays are the panels day, so let us we'll see 2-3 other panels also. Good afternoon,
Suresh,
everyone.
you got to speak up a little more. I think your volume is coming a little less.
Now, good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, best.
Fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thanks for this opportunity with you all today, and great to see our known peers. And the topic which comes part of the secure and security matters a lot when it comes to cyber security in terms of BFSI, the virtual conclave, where these are the right team, which you can say it's like not distributed with multiple experiences and a diversified team where they can talk about almost all the topics which is used to part of the cyber security. And when it comes to in terms of how we can do things in terms of innovating and distributing similar things, how cybersecurity we can use part of internal and external, and the kind of dynamic changes which is happening part of the market. And panelists all are actually more into innovated and a distributed model, even if it's a partner or CIOs or CISOs are specific to cybersecurity, we can see them worked on both the sides. So some of the main storage solution when we debated, like people talk like our no employee and they give contributions with it matters a lot when it comes to deployment and trying to do it. Same way when you talk about Mr. Prasanna Lower, like recently the kind of blockchain or anything which comes part of the technology and which comes part of the secured environment, like no, they have done a lot more, and they have given enough in terms of how they can try to generate and try to fix such things on that. When it comes to Mr. Sanjay Agarwal, again, the kind of determination and commitment part of the cyber security and IT security, he has done enormous work, and he has created enough in terms of building more concepts and the patterns which they try to use it. And specifically when you talk about Mr. Sudhin, he keeps things very simple, even though you call it as security, you call it as innovation or disruption, but he would like to be more in terms of approving the better things. So even you can see his social media vibes, which will have more of an approval only. So he enjoys giving approval where he ensures the information part of it, and creates more in terms of diversified innovation distributed across. So it's a diversified panel, and people can give more inputs, and people are well versed with the current and the kind of topics what we are talking about. I'll get to start with Mr. Sanjay Agarwal in terms of how cyber security or IT security has become very important function for enterprises. What are the top priorities for CISO or enterprise security experts as of today?
Thanks and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really honored to be a part of this panel where we have some of the top industry experts here. In fact, it's not uncommon to hear cyber crimes these days. This pandemic particularly has accelerated these attacks on enterprises. Some of the common ones that we hear are something like account-centric frauds, identity thefts, ransomware, phishing, even data theft challenges internally within the organizations are being heard of. And that is the reason why today enterprises are focusing a lot on cybersecurity. What they are trying to do is strengthen the technology and IT infrastructure, enhance the processes, and adopt best global practices to safeguard the important data, the data that is critical applications, the devices that use in banks, for example, ATMs, etc., networks, and the entire IT infrastructure. During my conversations with CIOs and CISOs, I found that very few of them are ahead of the curve, and they are focusing on risk mitigation when a theft is detected. However, large number of enterprises and CISOs are struggling with data. They are trying to find right data at right time at right place so that they can do a pattern detection, and hence they can sort of identify where the potential threat is before they start risk mitigation activity. In general, the feedback is that 70 to 80% of the time is going in data preparation and data related challenges, and very little left towards innovation that are important for business and enterprises. So today, let's look at some background. Today, if you look at why we have these data challenges, because of the digital transformations, we have initiatives that are around cloud, social media, big data, IoT, mobility, etc. And all of these initiatives have generated many different data sources from where we are getting tons of volumes of or terabytes to petabytes of data, and each of these sources generating the data that's in different form. managing this huge amount of data, getting it together, and then analyzing it itself is a problem that's known as data problem. That's also known as big data problem. Unless we fix it, unless we address this, we will continue to be struggle with data operations, and we'll have very little time left for innovations, for security, risk mitigation, and all of that. So top priorities for most of the organizations remains to ensure that the moment theft is identified, the risk is mitigated. But apart from that, their focus is also on early theft discovery, pattern discovery, and more important than that is having a right data at right time to ensure that we stay focused on security analysis and innovations. Back to you.
Yeah. Great. I am audible.
Yes.
Yeah. Great insights, and really appreciated the way how things are taken it up. Now we can see from the industry side, and Prasanna, you can express as much as towards the innovation disruption using the inbuilt security and as part of the BFSI, which are all the areas we can still get matured and which are all the areas which is open for us. Yes, Mr. Prasanna, you can start.
Yeah, so thank you, Suresh, and good to be on the panel along with you and our friends Sudhin and Sanjay and everybody. And thank you, organizers, for inviting me for this panel discussion. So coming back, I think security is a very, very important aspect of digital transformation. Sometimes or at times, what happens, like out of anxiety or out of enthusiasm, we deliver digital products for our customers, and sometimes we see that the security part is still not taken care. But I think banks sitting in a glass surface now has learned over a period of time. Security is very important. Without following security guidelines or without following security practices, we don't make any of those products available for the customers. Quite a lot of things are happening on the various areas, like within network security, outside of network security, and so on. And RBI also provoking this thought process with the various best practices, introduction of various best practices. Recently, RBI has introduced latest guideline for ATMs and mobile and other digital channels in February 2021. And as a team, we always keep our toes high and keep on reviewing weekly basis how are we on the closure of these guidelines, and as well as various other trends. On yearly, we keep on doing a lot of audits, ISMS or PCI DSS or ISO, and those audits keep a track of how, as a process, we are strengthening our security practices. So it is not only internal security of an app or enterprise, but there are other security aspects. How are we dealing with our partner? Do we have a right set of insurance or agreement, or with the partners? Some fraud happens, like who will be held responsible? Where is your data stored? So apart from your aesthetic aspects of technology, of application and enterprises, there are other aspects we need to take care of this. Coming back to innovation and the customer expectation, customer always is not so happy to put so many passwords and OTPs, right? If you talk about internet banking, he will put his login password first of all, then followed by he will put his transaction password, then later on we'll ask him to put OTP also, right? So I think much more better guidelines are coming how to make this security experience invisible, either with a biometric or either with a facial or either would be behavioral biometric. Those kind of innovations are coming in our life, so that security layer becomes thinner, and the customer should not bother about how many password he should remember at a time. In the back end, right, to cater. We traditionally used to use fraud risk management tools, right? FRM tools, which is one of the mandated by RBI for every bank to be utilized for all the channels, CET, UPI, or internet banking, mobile, ATMs, and so on. What we are doing, like we are adding one more layer in the FRM to create a customer 360-degree profile. To understand, is it Prasanna or Sudhin who is doing transaction against one custody, and that profile really helps to give a second level of authentication, right? So we call it as adaptive authentication, and we have designed defined those, either could be password based or OTP or IVR based, or we are bringing some kind of additional layers of adaptive authentication. So depends upon the type of customer, say it's a retail or corporate, and based upon their convenience. So I think these kind of innovations are certainly coming as far as the customer experiences are concerned, Suresh. And in the backend, apart from SOC, which is becoming a traditional security practice for having SOC and having any of those VAPTs, which we occasionally do, right? But on the so I think 24/7, how do we safeguard, right? Some kind of a deception technologies, or how do we create a zero trust kind of a mechanism? Although it's like a dream come true to have those kind of ecosystems, but in a combination of how our people are aware of not to click on some email which is coming from unidentified source, or not to put your USB or without whitelisting inside your network, or safeguarding our customers with these traditional as well as innovative mechanisms of authentication. So in a combination, that's how we can safeguard overall ecosystem in the sense. Another aspect to look at is like how do we patch your softwares, right? Windows or databases, right? At times it has to be a dedicated practice, and the RBI also, or auditor also, or regulator also says they keep on seeing that whether your OS of all the servers are patched or not, or your database servers are patched or not, whether these antivirus servers, at times people go and disable it out of some issue is coming because of it is blocking some redirectional URL, something like that. So on the fly, we should have a monitoring mechanism at a bank level, which will say the health system of every server, whether everything is patched, or whether are there any exceptions. So I think banks are now relying on some monitoring tools. Okay, so monitoring tools, as well as they are injecting these monitoring tools in a form of a SDK, or in form of scripts in every application, so that as a whole, as a dashboard, we can see how many are green or how many are amber or red. So I think these kind of things are coming in our way to safeguard ourselves. I think in a nutshell, there are other emerging technologies Sudhin may touch upon, like blockchain or AI or something, how they are going to come in our life and remove those additional layers of authentications, so that we have a seamless journey for a customer experience, or how blockchain can be utilized, like whenever packet coming inside your network. So there has to be some additional question asked by this layer. Are you really from authentic mechanism, right? Then only allow that packet, so that we can avoid issues like WannaCry or some kind of a ransomware. So those can be avoided by adding these additional layers. This is what we can see. And network can learn based upon, or injecting AI can learn immediately and give back some notification. Some system is already having some malware, please take care of that. So some kind of a hashing mechanism of hashing of a server, now hashing is changed in the next day. So why it has changed? Either because of some patch or because of extra malware. So those kind of things can be really taken care with the help of these emerging technologies like blockchain or AI. I think future will be quite interesting. Okay, once IoT will be in our life. Okay, so or 5G will become a normal technology in 5-6 years. So I think what we are offering today as a technology service provider, we'll have some other technologies from our technology service providers. So it's an interesting journey to have a one technology, or to safeguard another one technology. We always bring some other technology. So I think we need to see as a holistic, as a community, where we are moving, right? How we can really streamline and make this security layer thinner, and how do we really safeguard our systems, people, and the work experiences. I think technology will be really helpful, like emerging technologies will be quite helpful. There are a lot of communities who are participating in this whole stuff. So these are my initial remarks, Suresh. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great insights. And again, that's what it starts. It's not just an innovation. It's not just a technology. It's beyond how things comes together, and how things are making more in terms of reaching the customer satisfaction. At the end of the day, how customer is getting benefited, and how things are seen more on that. That's a great insight. And now I would move to Mr. Sudhin. asking about like how the IT innovation, especially the way Mr. Prasanna suggested, and since you participate more in terms of advising to banks and trying to create as much as secure solutions, your views on that and your highlights and what all your suggestions for us to talk more about cybersecurity.
Yeah, thanks, Suresh. And just to continue on what Prasanna Lohar mentioned, in 2017, as head of innovation at State Bank of India, our core banking systems at approximately 25,000 transactions per second and approximately 1.5 billion transactions in a day to cover 490 million plus customers and 690 million plus accounts. This is the most advanced, scalable, complex core banking system in the world, made in India by Indians, by Indian technologists.
Great, great.
So this is the size of scale that we are dealing with. And every day we can see that even with COVID, with the lockdowns, with so many disruptions, and living in this digital, contactless, seamless world, all the banking transactions, whether it's SBI, whether it's DCB, whether it's ICICI Bank, or whether it's Bank of Baroda, all these transactions work. So these are mission critical transactions. Extremely critical, have these mission critical transactions fail. On the other side, we have the fraud in the entire system. And this is in the public domain. The amount of fraud, that is the money lost by banks and its customers, is a whopping $20 billion. My view, not the bank's view, is that this money, $20 billion, if saved, can be given to the people who actually need the money. Right? So these kinds of massive systems and massive ecosystems require weapons of mass innovation. We require adaptive security. We require autonomic networks in the form of 5G. We require AI. We require machine learning. We require zero trust architecture. We require sandboxes. We require data sandboxes. We require network sandboxes. And all this is coming at the right time. The reason that emerging tech and innovation is very important is because today the entire cybersecurity, as well as the entire GRC that we have, governance, risk, and compliance, which is not only for banks, it's for everybody. But of course, banks are regulated, and it is the regulator which is mandated to push all this. And we ourselves as banks do a lot of stuff in this regard. So, the GRC and cybersecurity today cannot be construed as a defensive or a reactive kind of a posture. When we do the security posture management today, we have to make it an offensive tool to find out what exactly is happening. What is the threat intelligence? Where is the fraud happening? How can transactions be more secured? Can we make it zero trust? So I think by using these weapons of mass innovation, by understanding the data, by analyzing the data, by using newer technologies like blockchain, which is a completely secured, decentralized system of record, which adds a trust as a service to the system of engagement. Look at our system of engagement, it's massive. Billions of transactions every day. Billions of customers which are using these mission critical systems. We cannot allow them to fail. So I think this merger of emerging tech, sandbox tech, AI, blockchain, together with using these innovations more as a proactive strategy, like an early warning system, rather than just saying that, yes, we have to report out these, we have to make these GRC reports every month or every week or every day, and then somebody reads about it. We cannot do that. We have to now study all this data and work on it instantly so that we can provide a seamless service, a service having a larger trust ratio to billions of customers and citizens who actually require these kind of world-class services without the risk of fraud or without the fear of them losing any money. So I think we are at a very good time where really technology is driving, not only from a defensive point of view. GRC has always been considered, audit has always been considered something defensive. We have an audit department, we have a CISO department, we have a GRC department, we have a chief risk officer. So just keep the departments happy and give whatever reports they want. But now we are studying all those reports and making our systems much safer, much more secured, and making sure that no breaches and hacks, and even if they happen, we can minimize the impact and coverage, and making sure that we are using cybersecurity in the right way to the benefit of our billions of customers.
Great, great. As how we can bring it out part of it, and I would recommend maximum from Mr. Sudhin to find out the volumes how we handle and the things which we try to pick it up. It's enormous. So before getting into Rahul Sheshatri, I would want Mr. Ripu Bajwa to get a feel how now the end user side was given. Now we would look forward more from the product and the kind of expectation set part of it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Suresh, and very good afternoon, all the esteemed panelists. Pleasure to be with you. I think you heard, and cannot agree more, the fact that with more innovation today, organizations want to really provide the kind of environment which is without fear innovate, without compromise innovate, so that you are bringing to light also the services that are important today, making sure that people are able to transact with the volumes of data that is happening, and in the various operating environments that the data is moving from endpoints to distributed core data centers to even cloud and multi-cloud. Seamless security is paramount, because that gives the confidence to organizations that they are in a position to take care of their own data as well as the customer data. We have seen and heard that integration and between departments, people are coming together. It is no longer the priority only of the IT department, which is to take care of the security of the security team to take care of that. It is pervasive. It is end user driven, and it has to be made aware to every person, especially in the work from anywhere environment going forward as well. Seamless security as data gets generated, moved from various operating environments, people use it, and the fact that various frameworks are now coming in place too, in terms of implementation within the organization as well as within countries today. Various verticals which are impacted today by external threats, they are seeing and they are realizing that they need to up the game as far as the threat actors are concerned. Every day we are hearing about cyber attacks. And sensitive industries like financial world, they are coming together and coming out with certain recommendations to themselves, through either the regulatory bodies or they themselves are interacting and seeing what best practices they can implement. Under the frameworks, we all know about various frameworks being in place. But what is very different, which we have seen in the last 6 months to 1 year, is the importance of being able to detect early, bring down the dwell time, making sure that in case of any incident, what are your recovery SLAs? Have you tested your recovery? Are you able to come out of it strong without paying any ransom, without getting your name affected, without getting your compromise? What technologies are you putting in place so that you are one up against these attackers? And a lot of organizations are investing heavily in this area because it's got to do more than disaster recovery. It is cyber threat, which is more pervasive, more global in nature, more impactful, requires a clean recovery, requires certain SLAs so that the business continues. It's all about business existence in some cases. And the recent attacks have really shown us that. They have literally crippled the organizations and the brand equity itself. What are we talking today is different is most of the organizations have spent a lot of money on security solutions, on ensuring the production systems are secure. And they're doing enough backups also, and we're testing the backups. But what we are seeing is these attackers attack the backup environment, because from there they really come to know which is the sensitive applications which are more prone to the business sensitivity and therefore more ransom. So they go through that environment. They take down your first line or second line of defense. And therefore, it is very important to even secure your backups through a cyber vault, which is an off-network vault created. And these are recommendations in the financial world today. People are creating cyber vaults because then you can keep your most sensitive data. And as I heard esteemed panelists talk about, that you should be able to be not just reactive. You have to be ahead of the game. You have to know what is coming in. And there are a lot of tools, technologies in the vault that you can run. You can analyze the data. You have your old copies. You can lock them. And you keep looking for these anomalies which are hitting you, these threat vectors which are coming in your organization, and proactively going and applying those patches, applying those necessary restoration features in your databases or the file systems, because those are the vulnerable points. And having said that, organizations who have got a cyber resilience strategy, they're looking at how do we really implement solutions to match that strategy. It's no longer at the CISO level or the CIO level, it's at the board level. And all organizations, we've seen various numbers being talked about, 60%, and more organizations are not too confident about recoveries. In case of an attack, how confident they are that they'll be back in time, they can sign up to a certain SLA. And that is where a lot of focus is happening today. People are getting more resilient, business resiliency is being talked about. And what is so important is your sensitive data so that you are not compromised. And what it leads to is, if you are having that piece taken care of, you can go and freely innovate. You can go and deploy new applications, test new services in time, go out to your customers fearlessly and take care of their data, which is what ultimately will give you the business. So I really feel, and this is where we are seeing a lot of financial organizations spending money in terms of not just on security solutions, but testing recoveries, making sure that they are resilient for future. Thank you.
Great insights, Mr. Ripupajo. As usual, you didn't mention like a product vendor, you mentioned like a partner, how things to have be taken care, and insights, which is very much required, so that it's not just a tool, it's more of how to avoid the downtimes and how to come up with the proactive in terms of using the security part. It's great. I'll come back to you on enterprises, average, medium to you in the next part. In the meanwhile, I'll get it to Mr. Rahul Sheshatri from Web Engage, where how in your organization or how you are suggesting us like not to be passionate on cybersecurity, and how you feel security kind of terms is utilized, used part of the BFSI and other sectors part of it.
Yeah. So from a very vendor perspective, BFSI has always been a lockdown industry because of the amount of security it needs. But one of the cost of innovation, right? So we are undergoing this whole digital transformation now. And, the basics of innovation is you can no longer do everything in-house, right? So that's where it all comes in. So even when we talk about our operating systems, we rely on, Linux or Windows or any of those vendors. And now everything has come on the cloud. So from a Web Engage perspective, it's a marketing automation suite. Marketing is such a big portion of today's, attention economy. But the moment you add, external stacks like ours or anyone else for that matter, there is data now flowing, which is not under your control, not under the bank's control. And as it was even suggested previously, the visibility that any single entity has on the flow of data is reduced severely because none of it is now in your control. And from our perspective, the very first thing that everyone needs to do and understand is the standardizations that we have. They are not the ultimate defense, but even the things like we underwent ISO certification, for example. And although it seems as if it's a technological solution to the problem, it's actually not. It's more of a people problem that we have today. The awareness not being there, or the fact that even if you have the right technology, if you don't have the right people to implement it, use it, and respond to disasters, then it's a problem. And even data being used for innocuous purposes like marketing, right? It still has PIIs with us. And the moment you expose PII anywhere, the chance of a breach becomes very high because people can use all this information. It's not just us, but even people posting things on Facebook. There used to be stories in the early days of social media, where people used to post a picture of their checkbooks, right? And then someone figured out how to misuse that data. So, uh, from an entire security perspective, I think in this whole startup-led era that India is going into, startups need to really amp up on the security front. And where I'm seeing a lot of innovation that needs to happen is the baseline is still not present today. So when a new company comes in the market, wants to build a wonderful product from an innovation perspective, there is still not an established security baseline. It always gets added as an afterthought. And the moment you deal with customers who actually have very valuable data, which BFSI being one of the biggest sectors there, uh, you start retrofitting all of these things in. And sometimes it doesn't just work that way, right? You can't just retrofit security, because security getting retrofitted also changes the whole experience of the product. As we've said, right, people don't like, as mentioned previously here, people don't like entering passwords 10 times. They don't like entering OTPs 10 times. But the fact is, it still happens, right? And unless it has happened to you, people don't generally realize the implications of those security breaches. For example, in my own case, I had a fraud transaction happen on my credit card. And generally in India, it's fine, right? Because you asked for that, you get asked for the OTP or some grid password. But what if you have international transaction enabled, which bypasses RBI's, second factor authentication? Still, some country like Argentina can, uh, charge you for something, and it's usually small transaction that you don't even notice in your statements, because no one views statements anymore. They just look at the ballpark amount and they're like, okay, this looks like how much I would have spent. And once your card is marked as something that can be exploited, and it's sold on the black market, and then it will hit you when you don't expect it. uh, so the core point here being that the security responsibility cannot just be confined to the BFSI sector today. It has to expand to every other uh, technological company who's not even directly doing anything on BFSI, because we are also kind of trying to create a pattern of experience that people are used to. So what happens is, if I can log in very easily into Facebook or Instagram, I expect my bank to work the same way. But it won't happen, right? Because people generally think my Facebook account getting hacked is not a big deal. But even then it can happen, right? The moment you become high profile and it happens, and then it hurts you a lot. If you are at a high post in a company and your Twitter account gets hacked, and people send messages that they should not be, it's not just you, but your whole company's reputation coming down. And we really have to make sure that while we focus on innovation everywhere, we don't lose sight of security. It's not that it's just the bank's job to do, or it's just the critical services job to do, but it's everyone's, every innovator's job to make sure that we are secure by design. So yeah, I think I'm short on time, but
Yeah, it's a great insights. And Rahul Sheshatri, you mentioned, you touched the point where how in India, especially, it's not just innovation, security is must on that. But anyway, I'll come back to you in the second round to find out what is the real reason, except BFSI, nobody's following. Again, I'm not talking about sectors. That you keep it. I'll come back to you on that.
Sure.
And I'm moving to Mr. Sanjay Agarwal. What are the typical challenges for CISOs, especially in the cybersecurity, when they keep it as an unstoppable journey?
Thank you. I'll just pick up the point that Rahul mentioned, that the security responsibility is no longer confined to banks or BFSI industry. And that's true. When we look at today's transformation that's happening in the market and the industry, we are also talking about embedded finance, where financial services are getting integrated with non-financial services, predominantly in retail segment with different digital platforms. And that's where the responsibilities are being shared across multiple entities. As a result of these initiatives, including embedded finance, huge amount of data is getting generated. And as earlier experts mentioned, I think biggest challenge is to discover the threats early in a timely fashion. And for that, we have to detect, or we have to find a particular pattern from the huge amount of data that are getting generated. from systems, from network logs, from applications, clickstream data, events, alarm, etc. And then we have to do a lot of data preparation work. That's data gathering, transformation, aggregations before data is ready for meaningful analysis. Some of the CISOs have mentioned that all of these put together, it's a loss of weeks or months of time at times, and that's where a stronger data foundation is required. Some of the challenges, if you look at, are number one, do we have a framework in place similar to what application industry has, known as DevOps? And in data industry, it is known as data ops. Can it bridge the gap between data challenges and what security experts are looking for to speed up the innovation and to speed up the risk mitigation initiative? And on top of that, of course, there are initiatives that are required to cleanse the data, to blend the data, because unless you have a 360-degree view of all events across the enterprise, you won't be able to do a pattern detection and threat detection. For that, data blending on demand, and those kind of challenges are there, and those kind of initiatives are required, so that the ratio of 80-20, which is 80% towards data preparation, 20% towards innovation, can be flipped to make it 80% towards innovation and 20% towards data preparation. And that's the challenge, and that's something that most CISOs are working towards. Back to you.
Yeah. Great insights again. You made it very crisp, so that in the interest of time, how we are trying to make it, and CISOs do take the ownership, like how try to build it out. I'm getting moving to Mr. Sudhin, where how cybersecurity or even IT security is very important to enterprise. Let it be average or a big, large size, or even a startup. What's your take on what's your views? And you heard Rahul Seshadri telling, also saying, like, India especially, we are not matured enough for security when it comes to innovations. Your light on that quickly.
Yeah, I think we still have a lot of work to be done, but I think it's only now that the fact that the cost of security, the damage to the brand, the organization reputation, the damage to customers, and it's now that it's being taken up extremely seriously. The problem is that we have been in the urge to develop applications quickly because of digital transformation and other such programs. A lot of the development teams along the way forgot basic concepts like how to adopt the Java authentication and authorization services. So as a result, a lot of the applications that have been built in the past could be a potential potential threat, and could be a potential input for hackers to get in, right? So I think a lot of work needs to be done. I think there are when we build all these applications, I think the security aspect has to be considered much more seriously. And this entire world of DevOps, AI ops, SecOps has to completely merge together. Only then will you be able to adopt this security across the enterprise, right? Otherwise, you will have certain departments, certain applications saying that we don't need security, or we don't need this kind of security, and that could be a fact. I mean, because look at the size of the banks, right? I mean, there's also cost of security, right? So I mean, if you have to implement cost of security, for example, there are about 500 million Jan Dhan accounts, right? Financial inclusion accounts. And most of the accounts have got either zero bank, rupees bank balances, or maybe 10,000 rupee bank balances. So what kind of, costs are you looking at, right? So if I think this entire merger can take place between the DevOps, SecOps, and AI ops, and as we improve upon the innovation factor, the cost of putting in these newer technologies does reduce the overall cost of security. And in fact, I have seen that it's a misconception to think that when we go digital and do innovation, that we leave security aspects aside. I have seen that going digital and doing the transformation has in fact today improved our overall coverage of GRC, as well as improved the entire cybersecurity life cycle across the entire application ecosystem.
Great.
So it will take some time. We are doing our best. Yes, even the as even the hacker technology if I can put it that way, is also improving. They are also, trying to get ahead of the curve. So, but I think we have come to a point where this cost of poor security is now become a fundamental issue. And a lot of the organizations internally, especially large organizations, have realized themselves. As for startups, I think it's always a challenge. It's better for them to align to what the bank requires. Like, for example, if it's a payment transaction, they should first only initially align to, the PCI DSS or PSD2, all these norms, so that when you come to a bank and, tell them that, we want to collaborate or, take a solution or we want to partner with you, then it becomes much easier for us to validate that, technology, because it's complying with those standards. So I think if these standards can be, got on early on during the design and architecture, phase of the projects, when projects are spawned off, there might be a certain extra cost to it, because obviously, it involves a lot of specialized skills. That's one other challenge. Banks have the resources, so they can afford it, but smaller companies, small organizations, MSMEs, fintech startups, small organizations may not have that specialization. But now, with the advent of cloud, with the advent of open stack security tools, and they're very good open stack, open source security tools, and with the advent of cloud, as what Pipu was what Ripu was suggesting, I think that gives another onus on the application development teams to get this security embeddedness early on. And with the cloud, it becomes much cheaper. Also, the cost of security is typically much cheaper, because you're just paying for a as a subscription.
Yeah, so it's a great insights we can get from you. Now you've even hammered it by saying like it's like available now, part of the cloud solutions, and it's not just a cost now. It's more of an a services. It's required and it's inbuilt. We have to make it. I'll come back to you, because again, in the interest of time, we have to go around with all. To Mr. Ripu Bajwa, like how the typical global best practices which can help enterprises and which give guidance, like now, because now we are blindly relying on the partners and cloud kind of technology. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We are at the midst of a lot of protecting data for the organizations, making sure that they are following the GRC norms and innovating and accelerating the digital transformation objectives. As platform providers, we believe and we are offering intrinsic security as part of our team across all the infrastructure elements that you talked about, software driven down to servers, and making sure that the storage and the backup environment is all secure, whether you're having it on-prem, off-prem in a hybrid manner. As Sudhir mentioned, cloud is the new solution today for a lot of backup workloads, for archival workloads. People want to look at it. People are looking at endpoints getting protected, SaaS applications getting protected, and agree with cost to serve, which is very important per user or per transaction. That is dramatically coming down, which is because of the efficiencies, the automation, and the ease of use, which is being brought in by technology. And I'm just talking one pillar, which is under the cybersecurity, which is people, process, and overall, making sure that the technology pieces are well understood. We are not just dependent on technology; it is people and processes together. However, as we look at cybersecurity and the overall, the theme of making sure that it is seamless across platforms, the onus definitely is as a strong partner to your organization, and also working closely with all the business users who are adopting all these new models, working from anywhere, making sure any device. The awareness levels are also increased. People are doing more of DR drills or cyber drills, testing themselves against any kind of threat or event. That gives you the confidence that how mature are you on a particular curve. And you will be able to see that it's an evolution. You will find that there are always steps to do. No organization in the world can say that, look, I'm fully secure. They are on a continuum. And that's why the technology piece, the processes and the people around it will together make this happen. not just one pillar. That's my take.
Yeah, great. Again, you well consolidated by saying people, process, technology. Again, secured. It's not just people. It's again with process. Again, with the kind of the environment. It all matters on that. Yeah, thanks for your input. I'll get into the final question to Mr. Sanjay Agarwal. Where what are the solutions available and to create a strong data foundation and accelerate security analytics? Because since you are CISO here, like you'll be the right person to react on that.
So yeah, in the interest of time, short answer. As mentioned earlier, I think a strong data foundation is critical for shifting focus from data operations to data security innovations. And for that, initiatives like data ops that I mentioned earlier are extremely critical. And some of the technology initiatives that are there today, and most of the banks are today taking it, data lakes are being created, and certain technologies like object storage is coming into the picture that is empowering data lake to be more efficient, more manageable, and more compliance-centric architecture is being developed around that. Another shift is happening is that, how do we get the data on board in enterprise in data lake? There are different challenges, there are different data sources, and there are technologies and solutions that can ensure faster onboarding of data sets, from different sources to data lakes. Another interesting dimension to it is, which is coming in from shifting the focus from operations to innovation, is can we empower security experts to pick up the data when they want, how they want, rather than being dependent on data experts within the organization, which prominently brings in a lot of delays. So that's another initiative wherein data on demand is being available, blending of the data being available on demand, orchestration of that being available on the demand, and all of these technologies being put together is able to help create a strong data foundation and allows enterprises to shift focus from data preparation, which traditionally takes 80% of the time, to 20 to the data innovations that will start taking 80% of the time.
It's again great insights, and you have mentioned very clearly like it's not just an organization; it's more to do with that how we can have an secured enterprise, no, which gives more in terms of data strong data foundation and to accelerate security. That's very very important, and it's nicely put on that. And now I'm moving to Mr. Rahul Sheshatri. Now your side views for non BFSI and how secured are a crisp answer.
Yeah, crisp answer is to. So I'll just briefly say why it is not present, because outside of BFSI there is a lot of tendency to build things in-house rather than acquiring existing solutions. That is because people are learning, and especially startups, people are excited and they want to build things on their own. The second consideration is that since security breaches are generally reported when it happens to banks and other entities, we generally have a feeling that it cannot happen to us because it has never happened to us. The same reason why we get a feeling that our desktop can't get infected with viruses because it will never happen to us. It can happen to my friend or someone else, but can never happen to us. So those are the two primary reasons, like why the awareness is kind of low on the actions to be taken. But as it was previously mentioned, smaller companies or even startups don't appreciate the amount of cost, not just in terms of technology and equipment, which is coming down, but even in terms of human resource investment that it takes. Because you don't have a shortcut to security knowledge, right? Even if your company has all the security tools in place, but it does not mean you can have a person who does not have the right security training who can manage them. You still need someone who understands the ins and outs and just relies on technology as a means of automation, not as a means of delegating knowledge to the system. So those are some of the reasons why it is still present in startups, and it will help if a lot of information flows from the enterprises back to startups in terms of technologies, processes, and it all happens through standards like ISO, SOC 2. But even the adoption there is quite less. So awareness would be, I would say, the right first approach.
So it's a great. Again, you also have understood, like, no, even part of the engineering, like, no, how things generally matters a lot. It's not just a technology. It's again combination of so many subjectives, and especially in Indian kind of huge volumes, like Mr. Sudhin said, like no, it requires more understanding about the product solutions. Again, like how Mr. Bharadwaj said, like no, it's more to do with people, process, technology, not just blaming to one set of people or one set of processes. It's multiplied to that. So I'm putting the last tag question to all, so everybody can give their views to on this area, where to say cybersecurity is very highly important for BFSI sector. And can we say that security measures to prevent the data against cyber attacks, we are present or we are capable 50%, 80%, or 100%? I would want everybody's views on that. So I will start with Sudhin. Sudhin is the right person.
I would say we are at 80%, but that 80% doesn't mean that it is that 20% gap is can become very critical and can really disrupt in because of the volumes, because the sheer size of volumes. I think it can create a lot of disruption. So I think it's right now 80%, and we would ideally like it to be at least in the 90 mid 90%, and probably even more than that.
Yeah, it's a great. And Mr. Sanjay Agrawal, your views, because it's just to your organization, not necessarily for the country.
Yeah, it varies, at different times and different organizations as well. So my answer would be it is never 100%, and it will never be 100%, because technologies are visible equally to the enterprises and the hackers. So they are advancing, enterprises are advancing, and that challenge will continue to be there. That tug of war will continue to be there, and sometimes hackers would dominate and some major frauds will happen. Sometimes enterprises will take some initiatives and will be able to protect. So it will not be 100%, but it's approaching towards 100%. The kind of initiatives that are being taken and the way we have heard the experts in the panel, it's going to be there very soon, I guess.
Yeah. You mentioned, like, no, it's more of an art of war. It's not so easy, and it's a continuous fight. Like, no, it's a win-win, and we should continuously be prepared to handle such situations. Mr. Ripu Bajwa, from your side, as a partner, what you would want to tell to the other people, other side?
Surely, it is one area where it will be a journey, and continuously being ahead of the curve, making sure that your risk is least rather, because you obviously have to innovate and be also taking certain steps to go out and try out and go after the business and go for the rewards. So some amount of risk, you have to have the appetite to take that risk. But the idea is that, can you bounce back to business? How much risk can you take? Can you quantify that and be prepared to bounce back? You have now with you a lot more than what you didn't have, say, 2 years back or a year back. You can look at minimizing that impact. And of course, from a percentage point of view, I will agree that it can never be 100%. It will be a continuous journey, but you can minimize the risk. You can bounce back.
Great insights. Again, Rahul Sheshatri, your views.
Yeah, so the percentage where I think everyone else covered, but what I would like to point out is cybersecurity is one area where even to maintain the percentage that you have, it takes a lot of effort. So it's not just about increasing it; it's just about being where you are. Like, it's like inflation. Right? If you keep the money under your pillow, it'll keep going down in value, and you won't even realize it. So yeah, that's my only point.
Yeah, no, great. The insights I expected part of it is what being part of the partners. Even Mr. Ripu can suggest for governments how much still they can improvise upon, because these are the areas where we can go back to them to say, see, because the organizations like Sudhin told, or Mr. Sanjay Agrawal talked about the kind of organizations where they well protected. But when it comes to government, the kind of volumes we handle, partners has to only suggest. We have to highlight to them, go back to them.
Yeah.
That's the expectation, set part of it. And thanks for all your inputs. And it's a great session in terms of sharing. Cybersecurity is not just limited to IT industries. It's very crucial for all businesses, including profit and not-profit organizations. But when it comes to specifically BFSI, it holds a critical value because of the stake, and the stakeholders would participate part of it. And banks and other financial institutions deal in millions of transactions daily basis and trying to create as much as on the protection, especially the stakeholders should get more trust, and the kind of emotions play a part of the business should get gathered part of the secured environment and to build trust. So it's very interesting where the kind of diversified panelists put most of the information in terms of what is the primary target of cyber attacks and how we require cybersecurity essentials for banks, especially for financial institutions, to upfront for existing security parameters and the kind of data sets which we try to put covering part of the cybersecurity and BFSI through the virtual conclave. Thanks for your all valuable time. It's pleasure meeting you all, talking to us, and really it's very immense pleasure again hearing from you all during tough times like COVID times. But still, we talk about more prevention, protection in terms of how we can make security as a global aspect. Here, I would want to end with saying it's more to do with completeness and finished. So if you select a right partner, you are fully completed. If you select a wrong partner, you are finished. Even though you select a right partner, but you confuse him with what are things on that, you are completely finished. So let us try to have something else similar for a right partner, for secured solutions, and trying to ensure the completeness. And wish you all and stay safe. And thanks for your all valuable time.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Suresh. It was a pleasure hearing you too.
Yeah, same here.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much to all our panelists. So, before closing the third session, I will take the honor to give the felicitation to our prominent panelists and the moderator of this session for sharing their valuable inputs and expertise. Now, I would like to announce the awards for the third session. Mr. Ripu Bajwa, Director and General Manager, Data Protection Solutions, Dell Technologies India. Sanjay Agarwal, Technology Head, Hitachi Vantara, India. Prasanna Lahore, Chief Innovation Officer, DCB Bank. Sudeep Barokar, Global IT and Innovation Advisor to banks. Rahul Seshadri, Director of Engineering, WebEngage. Dr. Suresh A. Shan, Head Innovation and Future Technology, BITS Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services Limited. Now, I would like to show gratitude for accepting our invitation, and it's a privileged moment for the Times Tech print media to have you on board. Thank you so much to all of you, and it was my honor to host this event. Now, we are at the end of this webinar, and we will be proceeding towards a vote of thanks.
Thanks for your valuable time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Audio Jungle.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you all. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.